Hello and welcome to Dialog Choices Podcast. We missed a week last week because Andrew and I didn't sleep. So we were like, I give up. And so we didn't do one. But this week we did sleep. What a surprise.
Wow.
That's where we are today.
It's important to note that you were both. I was awake during the time we were supposed to record last week, and you both weren't sleeping while we were not recording. You were just working on other things.
Bad use of time.
Didn't you go back to sleep, Andrew?
I did go back to sleep.
Yeah, that was like your goal was to go back to sleep in that time so you could be ready for the Final Fantasy stream. In my case, I had already had coffee because I was going to try to power through the podcast, but I was definitely depending on at least having Andrew there too. So him being a wreck too, I'm like, oh fuck, yeah, this isn't going to work. And also I already have coffee, so I also can't go back to sleep.
Yeah. I can't imagine going to sleep and then waking up and then being okay. I can't do that. Once I for the first 4 hours of the day, I can't say things very well.
Yeah, my body just quits on me, where it'll just be like, oh yeah, you woke up. You're not ready to wake up yet. It's been too short. You're not going to be good today. Too bad. You're awake. You're never going back, boy.
Oh,
if I know that I'm already fucked, there's nothing I can I can sit there and lay in bed and put on some white noise and do whatever the fuck I can try to do, and I'll just be trying to go back to bed, and I can straight up just waste 2 hours trying to go back to bed and have it never work. So at some point you just give up. I'm like, okay, today's just gonna suck.
Yeah.
Just all the more reason to have weekends programmed into my schedule now, where I only have to do 5 episodes per series per week instead of 7, because if once a week my sleeping fails, then it's just like, well, fuck it, today's just a
sleeping day.
Yeah, well, not even because I won't sleep, it won't work.
Oh, right.
So instead, it's just
I see what you mean.
Don't work day.
You can use the day up. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just fuck off and play WoW or watch The Expanse or whatever. And be like, this is just a nothing. This is just a whatever. Can't do much else because it's still quarantine. There's no world outside.
Yeah.
Unless I just want to go to a bike path alone or something.
There's no world outside.
I mean, it's not going great. I always want to say, it's funny. I got in such a habit this last year, of referring to the state of the world right now as 2020. Here it is. This is 2020, and it's always the vague reference to all several elements of political strife, but also just the overbearing, world-changing aspect of the coronavirus and so on. But now it's not 2020. It's 2021, and I still continue to always want to refer to it as 2020, because the feeling and the state of the world is just so specifically 2020. That is the problem. That is the term for all this, but it's not true anymore, and I hate that.
I was watching a video from July 2020, and somebody mentioned the before times. And I was like, it was so jarring to me because I haven't heard that expression in a while. People don't even talk about the before times anymore. At least I haven't heard it. It's
we've been in this for so long that wistfully referring to 3 months ago before it started is such an old idea that it doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
Because that itself is referring to that now. Yeah. That amount of time ago is several of that time ago. It just loops and loops. It's like when you measure your time, your life in terms of how long high school was, and then you're eventually oh fuck, high school ended 3 high schools ago. It's such a large amount of time that you can't process it the same way anymore. We can be nostalgic about the early pandemic now.
I am not nostalgic about
nostalgic.
it. I'm definitely not.
Nostalgic might not be the exact word, but what I mean. You can think back on that a distant past thing. I remember
long ago in a distant past,
back in my day.
It was I remember oh man, what a bummer. This thing might actually last long enough that I have to turn 30 in the pandemic. And that was in April of 2020.
And
Because-
your birthday is in August, right?
No, my birthday is in April. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like
Birthday's in April.
it's like, oh man, this is. I don't think lockdown's going to be gone in time. Like, because we still didn't fully understand
know,
how astronomically large and long this was going to be. So we're like, oh man, fuck, it might actually last like a whole 3 months. What a long time to be like this. And like now it's like we don't even remember what the world was like anymore. We're gonna have like difficulties like reintegrating into society. Like our generation is going to be defined by this handful of years, because we're gonna fundamentally behave differently, potentially for the rest of our lives, in a way that we don't fully understand, but other generations will notice about us. And it's like that's the fucking world we're in. That's the fucking state of things. Like, what a fucking concept.
I love the
definitely
idea that it's like you're gonna look back in this time. It's like, wow, everyone dunked on fucking millennials, and then a pandemic happened, and all these millennials really just didn't take it well. And it's like, what happened to this generation?
Well, like it'll be all these things like, why don't they like crowds?
Well,
They didn't own homes. They didn't hang out with crowds. They all went to school but didn't get good jobs. What the hell happened to this
They
generation?
never touched.
really
They never
crappy.
touched their face, but they always wash their hands. All these different fucking elements.
It's definitely
It's
a
a
case
lot
of
weird.
It's definitely a case of like, I think, like here in Portugal, we're probably going to be in lockdown for the rest of the year. Really, even with vaccination, there's always going to be measures. There's always going to be slowdowns, and even if the thing is, because it's going to be so progressive, coming back to normal, or making a new normal, as it were. It's like a real question of, well, now I don't wanna. You know what I mean? It's like I don't feel. I miss being with friends, meet space friends, and I miss playing
Meat space.
Yeah, because I'm a YouTuber. It's different. But I miss playing a band together and just going to shops and doing whatever without having to worry about, am I now gonna contract this deadly disease that might kill me or my family? But it's also like all this time without doing it, it shapes the, like, we can't be I'm talking from a personal perspective, but I assume it's the same for everybody. I didn't get through 2020, and I'm not going to get through 2021 while pining for the good old days of just doing whatever. I'm not here being like, man, I really want to go back. No, I came to terms with this, and I need to be okay with it for a while, or however it's going to last. And then when it's not this anymore, then, well, we'll see. But I'm not.
You're just never gonna go outside again.
Yeah.
You're gonna be what's the Japanese word?
Ikikomori.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hikimori.
Yeah.
Fully give up on ever living in society again.
I mean, that's like so for example, I did go out recently. And it was like really, I felt like immediately anxious the moment I realized that there were a lot of people in a vicinity, and I was like, am I crazy? Am I the only? There's like this moment of like you feel like you got gaslit, where you're like, "Fuck, was I the only one who got told about a pandemic?" Because all of y'all don't seem like you noticed.
That's sort of, and when I see that,
there's a
just makes me
sampling bias.
not want to. Yeah, that's also true. Yeah, for sure.
Anyone who doesn't give a fuck about the pandemic is going to be around outside the most, in general. But yeah, no, I went to the post office to check my PO box at one point, and there was just people walking around in there with no masks on. I'm like, what? Like, what the fuck? And it's like it's just frustrating. And like different people live through this in different ways. Like I have, there's multiple people in my house that just have to deal with like customer service face to face every day. And it's like, that's a very different pandemic experience. Whereas like I have been like shut off from society because my work doesn't involve being forced to be with people all the time. So like, I straight up like, I continue to, especially because I can order food and stuff like that. I will put off going to like grocery shopping longer and longer sometimes, and like more and more it's like longer and longer gaps between seeing anyone besides my housemates in person, and it's always like this weird threatening experience whenever you actually go out anywhere and you're surrounded by people, and you just like you get paranoid, like because you like use the you like, oh fuck, I didn't use the hand sanitizer at the register, and like what have I touched, or like did I accidentally touch my face or something like that, and like is this the one? Like every time I have to go out to deal with something and I'm touching surfaces and things, it's always like it's definitely less bad than it was at the beginning when I was more afraid of it, which was ironically when it was less dangerous because it was such a smaller pandemic back then, because we had no idea how big it was going to get, and I'm a little desensitized to it now. But there's still the aspect of like in the back of my head, I'll occasionally think about like, how many days has it been since the last time I went to the grocery store? Would I be symptomatic by now? Like, and like I guess I'm okay this time. Like I have like a timer in the back of my head here and there. I was like, oh yeah, I went to Rayleigh's on like Saturday, and it's like Thursday, so I guess I'm fine. But like there was early on, it would be like I would fucking like snore or something, and my throat would be sore, and then I'd be like, this is it, I'm dying. Like, yeah, just any other, you would catastrophize any symptom, and I would create my own symptoms by just being somebody that wakes up shittily on a regular basis and be like, no, but this seems worse than normal.
Every time I smell like a particularly strong smell, and I remember that I have the sense of smell, I'm like, oh no, I'm still good. Like, and every time I cough, I'm like, it's just, I think that's probably a common experience for a lot of people. Maybe not the most unpreoccupied of people, but I think like seeing people who are just don't give a damn about the pandemic, that just makes me want to just, no, I will, my house is very nice, I will put myself in there.
Oh, yeah, it's so deeply frustrating.
I'm not like I'm aware that it exists, and I am not. No, I'm saying, and I get that. Like I'm not. I don't have a fear of it. Like I'm not as scared of getting it because like good luck killing me. But like no
one else has succeeded so far.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, many have tried, all have failed. But good luck.
The Mr. Burns syndrome or whatever.
Yeah, well,
so you have so many diseases. It's like they're all trying to fit through this door, and none of them can get through.
But I don't go around. I'm not touching things and then rubbing my face. I wear a mask. I do the things. It's just like the way I approach stuff is because I'm wearing a mask anytime I'm outside. I touch anything I want to, because the moment I come inside, I just wash my hands.
Yeah, that's a habit.
All. Yeah. And it's, that's I'm not somebody who touches my face. Well, besides when I used to smoke, there was no other time I touched my face. I don't go around like putting my fingers in my nose and like sniffing my body. So I don't, I never like panic about like, oh, did I do the thing? Well, oh, I touched the thing. It's like, oh, that's fine. I'll just go home and wash my hands. Like, just, because what?
I had like a mortifying experience where I was like, did I just make somebody fear for their lives?
Did you sneeze?
Because I was getting groceries, and like everything was loaded into the cart, and I just left the register, and I used too much of the sanitizer that they have there, and I was like trying to rub my hands together to like get it like away, like finish it or whatever the fuck, and like I was like, I gotta go. There's like, this place is crowded. I gotta go move, and so I started pushing the cart, and my hands are still wet on the cart, and I'm like, oh fuck. But I get outside, and I put my groceries in my trunk, and then I'm pushing the cart to the cart station, which I always do. You fucking lunatics! I'm so mad at everyone in society because they just leave scattered carts in the parking lot everywhere and just make life hell for the guy that has to gather them all, while also like endangering everyone's cars all the time, and also
I was gonna say it's not even just
literally taking up parking spots. Like, what the fuck? But I'm on my way back to the cart, and this person's like, "Oh yeah, I'll take that." I'm like, and I just kind of like. Because I just go along with, I always default to just going along with whatever the fuck people say on a regular basis.
You have signed your
just out of like a social politeness or whatever the fuck. So I was like, oh yeah, okay, and I just kind of let them take it. But I'm like, one, it's like, why are you just freshly taking a cart straight from another person during a pandemic? Like, what a choice to make. It's like holding doors open for people. It's like, no, it's this dies this year. But also, I'm like, oh god, I think the handle was still wet.
Yeah,
it was like wet with
impressive.
sanitizer, and he's like, he walked away with like a wet handle, and I'm like, I'm just gonna leave. I'm just gonna get out of here and not think about this anymore. But I'm still thinking about it. It's been like 8 months.
You also said some very interesting sentences. You were trying to rub your hands together to make it go away, and then the person walked away with a wet handle, and this situation can be misinterpreted.
That's my job. I just do that. I do it I definitely do it on purpose.
You did not do it on purpose this time.
No, I do.
You did? Oh my god!
It's like Effie will fucking like quote my phrasing, like it's like, wow, I can't believe you said that. I'm like, my job is me self-selecting the way I phrase things to make it the most entertaining. That's all I do all day.
Good job.
I will say stuff specifically the dumber way, like when I'm playing fucking spoiler. Fuck it. Guess what? Playing Mario, like when I'm playing Mario and I'm like, present yourself to me, Plessy, because fucking Plessy always like points their ass at you so you can jump on, and they're just like this needy little bitch is just all over the entire level, spawning in every pool of water every time you approach it, and just like presenting their ass to you for you to jump on. Like they just do that the whole game. All the time. So it's like, present yourself to me. That's just what you do.
Mm-hmm. Spoilers.
Well, it's because of the game. I'm a bit ahead of schedule. I finished MDK before it came out, and then I was halfway through Mario before MDK came out, and I just finished the rest of Mario yesterday.
Good job.
It's short. It's not MDK short. MDK is only
such a trip.
MDK is only like 3 hours long, and Mario, which all the websites claimed was 3 hours long, was definitely like 6 hours long. And I wasn't really wasting time, because it's not really a game where I can waste much time, like expounding upon the lore and standing around and monologuing or anything. And so I'm just convinced that everyone who says that the game's 3 hours long is bad Mario players. Like
Skipping all the dialogue.
No, there's not much dialogue either. They're just people that are like, I beat Mario. You know, I got like 2 stars per Mario 64 level, and then I beat the game. And it's like, what are you doing? Who does that? You get every star, or at least like 80%, and you skip the handful that look boring or whatever.
I thought they have a thing for that, like a completion.
Yeah, like this, that game has 100 stars, and like I noticed that like the first bell that you encounter, because there's like the gates in the game. For progress requires 5, but the first region has like 20. And I'm like, what did you just fucking like qualify for the bell and then just beat the game as fast as possible? It's Mario. Don't you want the shines? Why are you here? You're not here for the plot, are you?
That reminds me
I better roll credits as fast as possible, then report online to everyone that the game's 3 hours long. Fucking idiots.
That reminds me of something really weird that happened to me with specifically Tides of Numenera, Torment, Tides of Numenera. It's an RPG by the folks that made Wasteland 3. And it's really good. But it is very verbose. It has a lot of dialogue. And the thing with doing Let's Plays is that, you know, when you read dialogue out loud, it's a lot slower than just reading it for yourself.
Yep.
And I was like in episode 30 of I'm checking now to see how many episodes. It's a 124 long episode. So half an hour each. And back then I was still releasing them like every day, because I don't release them every day now. But back then I was releasing one episode every day, and that was it. And by episode 10 or something, in episode 50, or sorry, after episode 15, somewhere around there were 3 different people that asked me that if I still hadn't finished the game. And this was like on a Let's Play that obviously releases once per episode. I still haven't finished the game. It's a freaking long RPG. I mean, I get that people can just finish them in 3 days and that's it, because it's, you know.
Like people are looking at your episode count and be like, God, you're still not done or something?
And I'm like,
that's what they say over and over again.
It's going to be the next year until I'm done with this. And it was...
There are always comments. There's also always the people that are just like, when are you going to finish this so you can start something else? Because they just don't care about that playthrough. And so in many cases, they're not watching the videos. They just see like it's still around and they keep poking in. It's like people will be like, because people like poke in and be like, when do you think this is going to be done? And it's like, because like it's especially popular on practice, both in the comment section and in my Discord for my Patreon series, because they want to know when the next one's going to happen.
Yeah,
but they're not actually watching the series that's happening now.
For
They
me,
get
it was, I
all
think,
up in
more
there.
of a. I think it was specifically related to how short the game felt for a lot of people, and
Yeah.
devoid of content. And I've recently learned that I missed like a few hours of content as well, because they were like a secret, an optional. Yeah, so it's like this huge RPG that it left me very satisfied, and I was like, this is great. I loved it. And then people early on in the Let's Play being like, oh, this game doesn't have anything. It's such a disappointment. It's so short. And I'm like.
Never underestimate how much people play video games in zombie mode.
Oh,
where they're
especially
like-
a game that's 99% dialogue. I can imagine.
Yeah, like so many people play games just like half paying attention and multitasking, and like I was there before, like in the mid 2000s, I was like watching YouTube videos while playing Near Gestalt, so I I like remembered nothing of it. When I came back and Let's Played it later, when I came back and Let's Played, I was like, wow, this is the plot of this game. And like the same thing goes for like I cannot tell you a single gameplay mechanic or any of the story of Kingdoms of Amalur, and I beat it. There's some games I even like platinum trophied that in this way, and it's just like,
actually,
I wasted that experience. And here's the biggest
Kingdoms-
sin of all. Here's the biggest sin on this list is New Vegas.
Oh, New Vegas is so susceptible to that.
Look forward to my eventual blind fucking playthrough of New Vegas.
gonna be
Because even
blind.
though I've beaten it like 3 times, I don't know any of it.
Like seriously,
I know the intro. I know there's fascists.
Well, it's kind of complicated. I beat New Vegas once, and I was
Are they
paying
not
attention. I did it on
fascists?
camera. They are, but it's either way. The
They're
point is,
not bad fascists.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, they're more Nazis than they're fascists. If that makes a
That's
difference.
worse.
And then people tell you
That's
that
a
they're
circle
actually
within
Soviets.
a circle with no Venn
But then you-
diagramming, but it's the worst circle in the fascism.
Then some people will defend that they're Soviets, and you know, do not pay attention to those people. Either way, the point
Some
is,
people have really worrying reads of games sometimes that really
Yes.
give
They
away
do it
that
on
you shouldn't
purpose,
talk
though.
to them anymore.
they do it on purpose.
Like how every single
Vegas is-
every single game that criticizes capitalism, if they're like, no, that's actually socialism,
It's
and it's
criticizing
like, oh,
socialism.
okay, you're an idiot. I see. This game that was completely devoid of subtlety, you didn't get it because you're so politically brainwashed. You can't handle something being incredibly just telling you its themes. Like,
New Vegas. Sorry, go ahead.
no, that was it.
New Vegas is specifically a tricky game to. Like, even if you pay attention, what I'm saying is, even if you pay attention, you're still not going to get it completely. There's so much subtext to that particular game that, I'm sure you're going to, well, I hope you're going to enjoy it, but you're definitely not going to remember anything. Because I'm playing it 2 years after finishing it for the first time, and right now I don't remember half of it, so.
And I played it when it was brand new, so it was during the time where the game hadn't actually been redeemed yet. Because at first the reputation was that it was shittier Fallout 3. Like it was just the common consensus among normies that was just that it was just not a very good game. Like it was just a glitchier, less well-made version of Fallout 3, and it wasn't very well liked. And then it kind of took a while for like basically the public masses, like the larger groups that actually bought it, to kind of quiet down. And then you had this whole. You got to hear everybody talking about it, how like all the reasons why it was an incredible game and so on.
That's the definition of a cult classic, almost.
Yeah, but it just takes it's when things get like reinterpreted and re-understood, essentially, like kind of like what's happening right now with Jennifer's Body, for example. Like people keep there's a lot of people rediscovering Jennifer's Body and making a big deal about like what's special about it, and being like, and there's a lot of like. I say this because like there was a thing where like, for example, Stephanie and I both found a channel called Yara Zaid that had this really, really good video about Jennifer's Body, and we found it separately at the same time because like the fucking algorithm just knew to send it to both of us apparently. And like Rowan Ellis just put out a video about that exact topic today, actually, so it's fresh in my mind.
Oh.
But it's like, but there's like an ongoing, like, and there's also like specifically a queer read of the whole thing that, and so like different subcultures have a much different read on the whole thing, and whereas the actual movie at the time was just this like, oh man, Megan Fox is hot and she's from Transformers and she can't act, but she looks like that. And that was like the whole narrative around her. So that's how the movie was basically sold, even though that's not how it was written or directed or like what the people are like that actually made any of the movie. Like, it was marketed in a way that was completely counter to everything about the point of the movie or even the target demographic of the movie. And then and then all the reviews are just like, the reviews are actually really gross because the reviews are constantly like, yeah, it's a stupid movie full of dumb bitches and she can't act basically and blah blah blah. But man, you kind of get to see her a bit. Like she sure is hot, but you don't get to see that much of her. So it's not really that good of a movie for seeing how hot. I just fucking blanked. I just lost her name. How did I do that? Megan Fox.
Yeah.
It's hard to cycle through the list of
yeah,
mistreated actresses because it's like not
she
Kristen
really
Stewart,
got
not Kristen
done
Stewart,
dirty
not
by
Kristen
Hollywood.
Stewart.
Kristen Stewart.
Because that's
Yeah.
another one where it's like that her reputation took a while to come back from Twilight, and it's like it wasn't really her fault. And I've been guilty of that too. Although for me, it's just really specific. For me, I was just like, fucking take a drink whenever there's an opening shot in a movie where Kristen Stewart's mouth is open for some reason. Because she's,
They must do that on purpose, right? That has to be editorial. Like
I don't know.
director
Kit Harington has it too, so I don't know.
That's why I'm saying, like
Like
Kit
watch
Harington-
Silent Hill Revelations and just watch every scene where Kit Harington has his mouth open by about half an inch and just kind of agape. And like
Yeah.
he's like looking for stage directions. Admittedly, he's not a very good actor.
Yeah, that's true as well.
He's not even good in Game of Thrones.
Yeah, he's fortunately for him, his role doesn't actually require him to be particularly.
No, he just has to make
overt.
pouty eyebrows, which is part
Yeah,
of where
and have
the slightly open
and have
mouth
hair.
pays off.
And have hair. They really went in all in on the hair on the later
Oh, yeah.
seasons. It's like, my God. The thing I say this because there are certain, like, obviously we as viewers we have absolutely no idea what kind of direction every person on stage, or it's not stage, on set, that is the correct term, gets. And actors also get direction for things that maybe they're not interested in. I was reading earlier today, is it Patrick Stewart? Who plays Patrick Stewart?
Who plays Patrick Stewart?
Wait, that's
What?
that's the actor. I'm sorry. I never watched Star Trek. I don't know the names very well.
Patrick Stewart
I think
plays
it was-
Patrick Stewart in Patrick Stewart.
Yes. I was reading an article
Jean-Luc
specifically about.
Picard.
Yes. But he wasn't on Star Trek. It was something else. And apparently the director just basically gave him. No, it wasn't him. Sorry, it was Gordon. I'm sorry, I don't remember.
We're on
the
the
name.
wrong actor the whole time.
Yeah, I'm just mixing up all the names. My point is that sometimes actors will have crappy performances that even don't fit the movie just because the editors or the directors want a certain
Give them
thing.
strange directions. That's
Yeah.
supposedly a big thing about Twilight. I don't even remember the source because at this point I've like watched a distressing number of videos about the Twilight series on both ends, like both the like let's just fucking like what is it, like Cosmonaut Variety Hour and Why Your Movie Sucks have both done like commentary throughs where they do a commentary track and then they do a highlight reel of the commentary track, and that's like the abridged video of them just laughing at the movie. Then you have like Folding Ideas being like, wait no, that was Lindsay
Folding
Ellis
Ideas-
had a video defending Twilight. Folding Ideas had a video where there was like a lukewarm defense of 50 Shades of Grey.
A few videos actually.
Yeah,
I
a
think
trilogy even, but only the first one
yeah.
was vaguely positive, and the only real point there was just, wow, the directors tried really hard to make anything out of this trash book.
Yeah, apparently
Which
the
happened-
first movie is the best one.
That's a weird parallel. Both of them have that, where they have a talented director making the first Twilight movie and the first Fifty Shades movie, and then each sequel got progressively cheaper and shittier, and in both cases they got rid of the first director and replaced them with much less creative people, and the movies just get worse and worse and worse. And like the books are probably also getting worse, but the movies get way worse.
I went to the cinema to watch the second Shades of Grey, and I came out. I'm sort
Just
of proud of
one?
myself.
Why?
Just the second one, because
How did you
friends
how
are
did
going
you
to cinema.
go? I was like, how did you get there?
Yeah, it's just the before times. The I'm sort of proud of myself that I came out and I came out of the movie, and I specifically pointed out the lack of agency of the main actress, and I'm like, she's not the main. She's not the main actress. She's not the main character, and everybody was like focusing on the details because that's what the movie's made for, and it's really directed in that way. It's just the the scenes. Now there's the scene with the beads, and now there's the scene where he has a nice car or something. Now there's the scene where he talks very specifically about this helicopter that's weird.
This helicopter that's weird.
Yeah, it looks like a ad placement. He's talking about, this helicopter's got an end. I don't remember exactly the details, but it felt so out of place in that movie. The thing is, I don't watch a lot of movies, so it must be really blatant for me to have spotted it immediately.
But the reason I brought up Twilight was just because a very often made fun of scene in the movie is that the first thing that happens when Bella walks into like the classroom that Edward is in, and Edward looks across the class at her and just makes a bizarre face, like it's just a confusing reaction where he looks nauseous or revolted or something. It's like, wow, what a romance movie. Because it's like their first eye contact. It's like, what is that? What does that look mean? And everyone laughs at it, and it's kind of deserved. But there was a video that was like cross comparing it with the text of the book, and it's like, oh, it's supposed to be that like he's so attracted to her blood, like he's devastatingly wants her blood, and he's like repressing himself and trying to look away, and he's like disgusted with himself, and he's trying to like escape that. And so like poor Robert Pattinson gets this like baffling fucking stage direction of like this impossible to act emotion in a book adaptation with no narration to try to explain what the fuck. And like no one can, like, it'd be so hard to come up with that being in any way comprehensible. And it's like, oh, suddenly you're like, this is why their acting is so fucking weird in that movie. It's because like in the first movie, there was this constant thing of like, well, how the fuck do you express these bizarre emotions, or how the fuck do you be these characters that are just awful characters in an awful book? And then as the series goes on, they increasingly resent their own roles, but they're contractually obligated to do the movies, so they're just kind of like, so all the more reason you're like, oh, okay, I see why they just are the worst in these movies. Like it's not like, and I felt on this bandwagon too. I remember my like fucking some movie reviewing website that I used to have an account on or whatever. Like I'd have like a list of like actors that where like, if this actor's in a movie, I'll see every fucking movie they're in. And these are actors where I'd never watched them in any movies. And like Kristen Stewart and Robert Pattinson were on those lists, but like they're both actually good.
Yeah, Kristen Stewart isn't bad. I feel.
Yeah.
I don't know about the Robert something.
At this point, Robert Pattinson, you would think he'd like reinvented his career at this point, because it definitely feels like he's been in a lot of stuff that showed that he's a good actor. But it's the normie factor of like, here's the hyper popular thing you're in, and then the next hyper popular thing you in. So like the fact that the last distressingly successful thing he was in is still Twilight means that whenever like when news comes out about like he's gonna be Batman now, it's like nothing happened in between. Like the whole like 15 years in between of career didn't exist. It's just like the vampire guy's gonna play Batman.
We need to be honest here. It's very hard to be more successful than Twilight, despite the hate and the backlash, because it is an enormously successful franchise for the movie specifically.
It just shows how things like that can just stick with you forever, and you're just stuck with it.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know. It's all a world I just don't really interact with.
Movies, because they're not anime.
Yeah, well, it's they always disappoint, so it's easier just to.
They don't always disappoint. Have you watched The Lord of the Rings?
He really doesn't like live action movies.
Yeah. You should watch The Lord of the Rings.
I cannot suspend my disbelief nearly as well with movies, because It has real people in it. Do fucking real people things. Stop doing fake people things. Like, fuck. Can't.
I've watched him because I remember when we went to see the second Hobbit movie in theaters, and and like and then we were watching. There was something on TV when he came to the house beforehand. Like my parents were watching something, and every time the camera cut, Andrew visibly flailed his arms in a reaction to the cut. Like the concept of editing in live action was ruining
jarring.
his brain.
Sometimes
It was a jarring fucking cut.
It was
like,
just
every time it was like
every scene
slap,
transition,
slap.
he would just flail. Like, what the fuck? And I was like, that was weird. Anyway, let's go watch The Hobbit. And we got there like too late, and the seats were too full. So I ended up being like, I sat with my family, and then Andrew sat in the front of the theater, like next to like the handicap space where there's like a big space of no chairs. So he was just on his own in the front corner. And I could see him down there flailing his arms every time a fucking cut happened. And I'm like, what is happening?
No, it's
Is this a
specifically
thing
okay.
you do?
You need to
you're not even
preface it.
like at that point, you're not even performing for anyone because like it's in the dark and only I even know who you are in the whole room, and you don't even know that I can see for you. So I'm just imagining you just watch like live action movies at home, and every time a scene transition happens or some kind of cut, that's like, oh my god, continuity's lost. This isn't all one take, and you like flail your hands in the air and you're like baffled. Like, what are you doing?
Because, okay, first of all, in The Hobbit, you need to preface, the reason I was flailing was because it was jump cutting during the scene where they were in the barrels going down the water, and it was going from real camera to GoPro, real camera to GoPro. And I was like, fuck, Jesus.
The
it's
GoPros
like the quality
reduce
drops
a lot.
The GoPros drop quality immediately, and you can tell like there's been a huge.
It's really
fucking
funny
fat
that a
cut
movie that was like,
right
we're
in
going
the
to push
middle.
technology with 48 frames per second, but also here's GoPro shots.
Yeah, I was like,
unbelievable.
what?
Yeah.
So you're in the middle of
fisheye and
watching
everything.
this. It's not that like every cut was. It was like those cuts were so fucking jarring that I'm trying to watch this horrible movie. I'm like, all right, I'm focusing, and then it's like, and it's like bad quality. Like, oh, wait, what? Like, it took my brain a second to go like, oh, did you download this illegally? Is this a pirated copy? Did they not finish all the graphical design on this? Is this like, what happened? And then it cuts back to normal. Like, wait, so it is a good movie? And then it cuts back to fucking GoPro. You're like, wait, where did it go back again? What happened here? It's like, and it does that consecutively for like 4 times. It's like cut, and you're like, all right, this isn't how movies are made. You can't do this. Like, this is bad. This is not okay. This is like something you would see on a YouTube channel with like 100 subscribers. You can't fucking put this on a giant screen. It's not okay. And like,
I still just like to believe that's a thing you just do in life. Both because there was other parts of the movie where you did it, and because you were just doing it in like broad daylight in a populated room, just in reaction to the TV right beforehand.
If a cut is really jarring, then it like, because I focus a lot. I try to focus on the thing that's happening. And if a cut happens, it's really unexpected in a bad way, where it's like, oh, okay, the scene's gonna change. I get it. If it's just like, okay, something's happening, it goes like, and it just cuts immediately. Like, oh, Jesus fucking Christ! All right, and like, especially if it's to like a different angle, but the same conversation. I hate that shit. I hate where it's like 2 people talking. It does like the back forth, like Star Wars prequel cuts, and then all of a sudden it's like cut now above, and you're like, what the fuck? Why am I looking above them? What fucking happened here? Can we have like something? Well, Jesus Christ! Like,
there's some directors that are so bad about that. Not keeping because there's like a specific cinema theory. I don't know what the term is, but it's where your eye is focused, and when you make a cut, you need to keep that because people are looking at it. Like if there's a face on camera, and some directors will use that to tell a different story. Like there's a face on camera on the left side of the screen, and then you make a cut.
It's called
where
vaguely like the 90-degree rule or something like that.
Yeah, there's some.
There's some kind of there's a rule.
Yeah,
but specifically when you're cutting back and forth between like 2 people, usually it's like they're on opposite sides of the frame each time you cut back and forth.
Yeah, that's a good way to denote precisely that dualism. But which is why it's so jarring. I remember that as well because I didn't watch the first Hobbit on the theaters because I wasn't very satisfied with them splitting it into 3 movies. So I was like, I'm not going to watch it. It's probably not going to be very good. And then I watched it on DVD. And it was actually fairly okay. And I was like, I'm gonna get go watch the second one. Hopefully it's good. And I was given tickets for the pre-release, so I went to the theater, but like only a few people were there because it was like a special deal before the actual release date. And it was such a letdown. It's such a long movie as well. Like, it's weird because they split basically what was supposed to be 2 movies into 3-hour long movies. Why didn't they make them 2-hour long like a normal movie?
Yeah, they also
so
like
padded.
they
And
insisted
bad as
on
well.
they insisted on splitting around the time Smaug was supposed to happen. So they kind of tried to have Smaug twice. And it was
Yeah, I didn't
and
watch the
it's-
third movie. I
and
was
having
so
the third
disappointed.
movie just opens with this like a really brief thing where just like it's Smaug attacking the town and being defeated, and it has nothing to do with the rest of the movie, and except for the part where like now the treasure is going to be like opened up for grabs, and that's what the movie's kind of about. But like it's such a bizarre opener because you like you undercut the climax of the previous movie by not resolving Smaug and just having credits roll. But then by the time you finally get around to the next movie, like 6 months or a year later or whenever it finally came out, it was like the momentum's gone now. Now it's just like, oh, here's a dragon.
It's the ending of the movie. It's like watching the ending of an episode of a TV series before.
Yeah,
Just
the whole
before watching the next
series had these kinds of problems, and it was frustrating because I remember like arguing with Joe and Andrew about it because I already had problems with the first movie, but at that point I was the crazy one, and everyone was arguing with me. But it's like I was really frustrated that the first movie kept setting up characters and plot lines, but then they never do anything in that movie. Like they'd be like, "Oh, here's Radagast. Who's Radagast?"
It's fan service. It's fan service. He doesn't
Like
show up.
That's the funnier. That's the funnier part is that as you go through
Yes.
the series, and it takes 2 years, so maybe you forgot over the course of it. But if you go back and see the dumb shit set up in the first movie that didn't go anywhere in that movie, so that it didn't need to be introduced, it
You never
also
read
in
the
many
book, did
cases
you?
never
Or-
gets introduced in the other movies. So they just forget
exactly.
about them. Like
But
you
you
could have
ne-
gone
did
the
you
whole
never
movie
read-
without ever learning about most of the fucking wizards, and it wouldn't matter.
Yeah, absolutely.
no, my
Did you
plan-
never read the book?
My plan was to I think I read it when I was very young or heard it or something, and my plan was to read the book alongside the movies. So, which was really iffy, but I was like, I heard where in the book the first movie was going to end. So I read the first 100 pages of The Hobbit or whatever, and then the movie just wasn't very good. So I didn't actually follow through with reading the rest of the book alongside the movies before each one came out.
The Hobbit is a fun romp. The book itself,
It's so
but
short.
it's very short. Yeah, it's supposed to be like a children's tale.
Yeah,
But the thing is, something that was really obvious to me, specifically with Radagast and with the Sauron, and with Galadriel for that matter, is that because she's not a character in The Hobbit, is that a lot of the stuff that was added to people who had already seen The Lord of the Rings.
yeah, it's
which
to make
was-
it a better prequel to Lord of the Rings, or that's the
but-
idea, but it wasn't good at that.
But it feels like a sequel, though. They didn't make it as
Yeah.
it doesn't feel like a prequel. It just feel, oh, look at this character that I already know. It doesn't feel
Yeah,
like
just like
foreshadowing
Legolas
for
being
anything.
forced in and so on. I
Yeah,
think the
yeah.
Hobbit book was exclusively from the perspective of Bilbo. So like
Yes.
every time like Gandalf vanishes, like that's just it. He's just gone until he comes up again. Like you won't know what he was up to. He might say one line about it, which actually does lead to its own issues with the book. Which you could be like it's a children's story. Who cares? So who cares or whatever. But it is really often unsatisfying how Gandalf will just appear and solve their problems after having not been in the story for the last 60 pages. And you're like, oh, hi Gandalf. Oh, hi, it's me, the solution to all the problems that we just set up. I'm like, all right, well that's a little unsatisfying for a narrative.
And they
Except
lean
the
in
bird.
on that. Yeah. And they lean in on that in the movies and make him solve even more problems than he does already in the book.
Yeah,
It's-
there's a lot of
yeah.
adaptation problems there. The
It
whole
should have
thing's
been
just kind of a
Guillermo
mess.
del Toro. That's
Yeah.
basically the
It's
conclusion.
kind of a mess.
What happened to Del Toro again? Like, why did he leave? Or
Oh,
get
they didn't like
fired,
his
or what
take
happened?
apparently.
Oh.
He was, yeah, because he didn't like leaving. He was. Did you? I was.
So
watching,
they just made their own bed then, huh?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean,
fuck 'em.
most movie studios with really
Yeah.
horrible
Lindsay-
movie releases make their own bed. Like they don't.
Lindsay Ellis has a very good trilogy. I was watching it earlier this week, and
Yeah, I've seen it a
she
few
goes through-
times.
yeah, very very good watch. For somebody who has never watched the third movie, I don't need to watch the third movie. I'll watch her series
No.
whenever.
I think I think in the breakdown of that stuff was also how I found the channel Just Right, WRIT.
Oh yeah, that's also a good one.
Which I have mixed feelings on that channel. I think that they still make some good content, but there was like a kind of spiteful but kind of cathartic, like, let's tear into this movie angle to the beginning of that channel, and then it became, I'm going to talk like I'm the Nerd Writer. Like, he talks so much like the Nerd Writer that I have to double check it's not a second channel of the Nerd Writer, because he takes the exact audio aesthetic and just kind of presentation style from a much larger channel, and it's really distracting to me because I know both channels, and I was also kind of already getting tired of the kind of like the sometimes the kind of triteness of the Nerd Writer, where it's like these are just such short videos and they're usually just, I found them often under engaging and like too clean and too like there's not having that much to say necessarily. Let's break down why this thing is genius, but in 6 minutes, and it's like
I think that's a type of video that sort of had its place already.
Yeah.
YouTube these days, it's either long term or like the shorts, #shorts. Have you seen that?
I like hour-long deep dives that have a fucking plot twist halfway through that recontextualizes the entire video, which is a genre.
And a surprise third chapter that you didn't expect, because it's 2 out of 2 in the title.
That was kind of one of the earlier ones. If you take Lindsay Ellis as like one thing, those Hobbit videos is like, here's this big breakdown about like the history of like the Hobbit movie and how that happened, and like, but also like all the issues with the story and these other stuff, and then surprise third part about how it's like ruining New Zealand. Here we go. Like the impact it's having on real people, and like the lobbying, and like how the fucking Lord of the Rings franchise is so powerful that it fucking rewrites the laws of New Zealand. And it's like, Jesus Christ.
And also really good interviews. I mean, she did such a great job there.
And then I think like there's like there's the folding ideas video about flat Earth that's like, surprise, this is about QAnon. There's the Jenny Nicholson video about bronies, where the surprise reveal is that she's way more into this community than you ever thought, and she has an entire sordid history as like as a voice actor for like an animation parody series, and like she was a celebrity within this community. Like, and then the most recent one was Sarah Zed put out a video about like, and then everybody clapped kind of stories from Tumblr, where everybody would people just straight up just make up stories that got increasingly absurd, but because it was a community of largely children and so on, and people wanted to, and there was often a catharsis built into the story, that everybody would just believe these things in many cases and share them. And then there's dedicated like subreddits like that happen to the idea that these are all like just laughing at these fake stories that people believe on a regular basis. But like the whole narrative there is that people think they're above these things and smarter than them. But like but then the plot twist here is that she then goes to the anti-SJW community, which is like all these like subreddits. They're just about dunking on like trans people and feminists and so on and so forth, and like being so mad at them, and this increasingly shrill and unreasonable purple-haired specter that they're always mad about, like this weird fantasy creature that definitely exists according to them. And like, and increasingly because of the upvote system on Reddit and the incentives being that are there, like, you got to find content to get those upvotes. You got to have stuff to share that everybody. It has to hit all the buttons of all the stuff that people want to click on, so that they can be mad at you. So it'd be like Tumblr in action or Kotaku in action, like those kind of subreddits. Like people, like you gotta share content to Tumblr in action that'll hit all the buttons that makes them upvote it. And heck, how are you going to find that? How are you going to find organic, free-range, completely unreasonable, delusional SJWs? And the answer is you don't. You just make fake Tumblr posts. Like, literally fake screenshots of stories and posts that never existed, and then fake that they had a bunch of support, and just post them to the subreddit. And because everyone wants to believe it, because they're already mad at this group of people for increasingly fictional reasons.
It's a cottage industry.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
There would be an entire feedback loop of people making up fake SJWs, then getting mad at the fake SJWs, then making up more fake up SJWs just to chase clout in an infinite loop for points that don't matter. And then, but that has real consequences, because people increasingly think all this stuff is real, and they keep getting mad at the specter of SJWs until the point where you've watched fucking Last Jedi and you're like, Lord, Drin has purple hair, and I'm mad for some reason that a sci-fi character has purple hair, and then you're like, okay, I'm sorry, I gotta explain to you why this is this way, because like you'll have like somebody that's not clued into the internet being like, why are people mad at that? What's this post about the hair? And you're like, I'm so sorry, but here we go. I'll explain this, because it's so fucking deranged at some point. But like it's like an infinite feedback loop. And like, so like these people think they're so much smarter than the fucking like people that let fall for everybody clapped stories, but they're themselves just falling for a infinite content farm of fake outrage stories that are being generated just to appeal to them directly in a very Fox News sort of way, where you just manufacture outrage by making up your own fiction as you go. And at this point, people on the next stage where they kind of started to realize that stuff was dumb, but now we just have stuff like Am I the Asshole and other subreddits that are also about sharing stories, which are increasingly just about making up stories. And those stories are very noticeably about like making fun of fat people, making fun of trans people, or here's a completely unreasonable trans person that like called me transphobic for calling them out for doing a crime and stuff like that. And it's like, we're still doing it. We're still doing loops of this. Like we all laughed about.
I think it's gonna happen forever.
Yeah, like you laugh about like 12-year-olds telling everybody clap stories, and that baby was Albert Einstein type shit. But like we're not any better. The most popular subreddits on Reddit still do the same thing. It's just people making up stories, and then people getting actually mad at groups of people thinking that these are real stories, which would already be bad even if they were real, because they're just anecdotes and anybody can be an asshole, and it doesn't have anything to do with groups of people. But it's like porn for just appealing to like their preconceived notions about why they hate groups of people, and infinitely feeding that over and over again. But they're also not real to begin with, so it's triple wrong.
Yeah, but I think Reddit needs to.
I love plot twist videos though. I love the fucking slow burn reveal that halfway through a video, like, oh, that's what this is about.
I remember some videos like that. It's kind of the examples. I haven't watched the latest Sarah Z one yet. It kind of reminds me. I spoiled
it for you.
No problem. The compulsion to tell made up stories for clout is something that I feel. Maybe I'm wrong. So, bear with me and correct me if I'm wrong. But it's something that I feel a lot of people go through in their, maybe boys specifically rather than girls. Because I've seen that a lot growing up in other friends of mine, boyfriends specifically, rather than girlfriends. And I was inoculated
that's the podcasting community.
No, what I mean is, like, do you know how kids will be like to each other? Oh yeah, like the other day, my dad totally got shot, and I was in the hospital. And it's like, oh, you, and just to say stuff really, and just to have something to talk about and have people interested in what they're saying. And I think there's probably a specific age where people do that more than other ages. But do you know what I'm talking about, or is it just in my head?
What, like just kids making up stories to get attention?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, that's
always been a thing.
Pretty common.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm not imagining it, but I was inoculated to it very early, because the cringe you feel when you realize that everybody knew you were bullshitting.
Yeah. In fact, not even just kids, but like that's a whole joke in Paranoia Agent. Like, you remember that, Andrew?
Oh,
like
yeah.
There's a group of old women that all share stories, and they all go, "Oh, stop, stop, stop," or whatever they do. This one hand gesture all at each other, or like go on, go on, or something like that. And they have a whole ritual of telling stories to each other, and they're increasingly tall tales all the time, and they're all lies. They're all clearly lies, and part of the gag is that there's one character that starts picking up on what's happening in the actual main text of the show, because these are all side characters in the background. None of them are important. And she's like, she'll say something that's actually the plot of the anime, and everyone's like, don't just fucking make up stories. Get out of here. Like, they won't believe her, and she's the only one that's right.
Oh, I see.
But no, just making up stories to make yourself sound interesting is totally a thing.
So one of my earliest memories of doing that,
I get that a lot. It's like, without experiencing, there are times where like I experience stuff and I'm like, well, I guess I can never tell people this now. Like, because it's stuff that, like, how do you how do you say that without it sounding like that, where it sounds like you're just looking for accolades or you're looking for like a whoa, that was a like impressive kind of reaction, where you're like, no, this just weird thing happened to me and I just moved on with my life from it.
Sometimes
yeah.
the act of telling a story gives you a little bit, or telling the story gives you a little bit of self-reflection in those moments. I feel
that's kind of the thing, is as you're telling it back, you're like, is this a good story, a bad story? Should I have said this?
Like, I could tell you the story without bullshitting you. I could tell you the story about why Fallout 3 was developed by Bethesda is because of me. And I'm not bullshitting you. I could tell you that story. I wouldn't be lying. But I can't tell you that story. Like, I made Bethesda by Fallout. I didn't, but I did. I'm not going to tell that. It's complicated.
What does that mean?
Also, you're talking about your earliest memory too, right? Was that a thing you were trying to talk about?
I was like 8 years old or something, and I think I was getting into that stage of my life where I wanted people to pay attention to what I was saying or something, and I got inoculated to, saying bullshit stories for attention, because one of the earliest memories I have of doing that is me telling a story to my dad about how I had gone to Disneyland, and he immediately caught my bullshit, obviously, but he would have went on with the one
that took you.
He didn't. I never went, but he went on with it. He went along with it, and he said, "Oh yeah, what happened?" So I spent I remember it being a relatively decent amount of time bullshitting him, and then he said
a thing he would have had to take you to.
Yeah, so the cringe is so real from the age of 8 that
it's also a children's story, so it's completely incoherent. And then
absolutely,
and so it's just like, that's nice, honey.
Absolutely, but I forever, every time I felt the need of, and I feel, I suppose, the need of being like, oh yeah, well, I made Bethesda by Fallout. I'm like, no, nobody's gonna believe that.
What the fuck is this claim? What are you talking about?
I'm not going to go into too much detail, but it has to do with an email.
Lie.
It isn't a lie. That's the thing. It has to do with an email and with coincidence, and it definitely is not what I'm saying. It's not Bethesda. They didn't buy it because of me, but I also can't prove that they didn't buy it because of me, because it all matches.
It's a fucking sensationalist headline where you just lie about the contents of the article. I see.
But at the same time, I don't. That's the thing. It's a clickbait lie.
Yeah,
we can never know how wrong you are if we can never get the article.
It's
behind a paywall for college students only.
I struggle to figure out like what stories. Sometimes I struggle to figure out what stories are stories you should tell.
Actually, you know what? I'm thinking. Sorry to cut you off, Andrew.
Go for it.
Okay, let me tell you the story of why Bethesda bought the Fallout franchise instead of Troika, the developers of Arcanum and Vampire Bloodlines. It's going to be very quick, because I'm going to let you come to your own conclusions. In the summer of 2003, I sent an email as a 13. So 2003, I was 16 years old. Yeah, that checks out. I sent an email to Bethesda with my crappy English at the time about a game that I had come up with that I wanted them to develop. And it was a game like Fallout. It was almost a ripoff. And I said, it's like Fallout, but it's a little bit different. And I got a reply from that email specifically from Pete Hines. Obviously, I don't know if it was Pete Hines specifically. If it were these days, it would be just the marketing department signing as him. But back then, Bethesda wasn't very big. And it was specifically signed as Pete Hines. And he said, thank you very much. We love your enthusiasm. But we don't do games from people outside the company. And I was like, oh, there we go. I had my shot, right? Mm-hmm. At the age of 16, I felt very accomplished. The thing is, after that, and I didn't know this until years later, I only connected the dots like 4 or 5 years after that. After that, Interplay started having trouble with the development of Fallout 3 that at the time was being developed by the original company. So they sold the IP, and they wanted to sell it to many people, and Troika, specifically the company that was making, or that at the time was making Vampire Bloodlines, Troika was in on the bidding. Bethesda came in and bought it for like 5 times more that Troika was able to afford, so Bethesda bought the rights. But the thing is, Fallout never really fit with Bethesda's game style, or even really their.
So you
fan
ruined
base,
Fallout.
Really. I think I ruined Fallout. That's the thing. Like this is the story basically. This is it. I've told it all, and I don't know what to think about it. And to this day, I don't know what to think about it. I need to ask Pete Hines if he actually answered my email in the summer of 2003, because I might have given him the idea. Because he's the head. He was the head at the time, and he's still the head of PR. And he's close friends with, what's the Todd? Yeah, Todd Howard. Like he's big honcho in the company, and the company at the time was very small, so it's things can have different dynamics. So, what do you guys think? Was I the culprit? Did I murder my favorite franchise? Because that's basically.
I'm pretty sure that a lot of the people at Bethesda probably played Fallout and had an interest in the franchise, especially when you say something like Fallout is going for sale. That sounds like a really hot commodity.
I wouldn't.
I don't think
so
you
certain.
had. I don't think you had to like clue people in that Fallout existed.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty confident that if someone that even back then someone was like, "Hey, I'm going to sell the Fallout franchise. Anybody want to buy it?" Like that's not a light thing to say. Like Bethesda definitely would be like, "Yes, that sounds
feels
delicious.
like when somebody
please.
thanks me for honoring their request for a Let's Play, and I'm like, I recorded the entire playthrough before you said that comment.
Yeah, like that. Before you could even
wow, they're listening to me. They did hear the build I suggested. Like I'm 4 episodes ahead on Hades.
if I bet you anything, I would bet you that they were in the development of making an RPG, a 3D RPG game, and didn't have an idea for, like, didn't have a brand for it. And when Fallout went up for sale, they said, "Oh fuck yeah!" And they just grabbed that.
As far as we know, that's not how they worked. They only started development
because Fallout 3 has nothing to do with Fallout. It's literally just its own weird little nugget
it's
in the
Oblivion
world
with guns. And Oblivion wasn't out yet at the time.
But that's what I'm saying is like it's so not even it's so devoid of Fallout that it has to be a game that was being produced well before Fallout was in their hands. And then when the title went up for sale, like yeah, let's just grab that. We can slap that shit right on top. Just add some stupid guys in armor. Done.
It's not implausible. It's not implausible, but I don't think I think we know more or less what happened.
Have you seen Bethesda? None of their ideas are original. They just slap shit on top of stuff, like garbage that they've made. They're
I'm
like,
playing
look at
Prey
this
right
garbage.
now.
It needs a name.
I'm playing Prey right now.
Like,
they did the same thing with Prey. Arcane was developing System Shock 3, and then they had the Prey IP right there, and they just slapped the title on it and said, now it's a spiritual
better anyway.
I mean,
yeah,
but Bethesda does that. Though.
I said it as an afterthought,
they
but that joke
do.
actually makes sense of the fucking Star Fox adventures, where it's like,
yeah, that's what happened too.
It's like, just take we got a Zelda game. It's our own Zelda, like kind of like Okami and Beyond Good and Evil, but like ours is Dinosaur Planet, and they're like, make it Star Fox though. The spaceship Fox man. Yeah, make it Star Fox though. He'll use a staff and beat people with it and escort a dinosaur around. Like, it's just like they just took the game they already had and like, yeah, but now it's Star Fox. There's like one spaceship mission for 30 seconds at the beginning of the game to trick you, and then the rest of the game you're just playing a Zelda style game, but Star Fox is there. Here's Fox McCloud. He, well known for his cargo pants and his battle staff.
Bye.
That was.
All I'm saying is
I still want to play that game.
I can't be blamed for deep down thinking I might have had something to do with it.
I mean, if that's the case, then I'm probably like the single-handed reason that most games are as bad as they are.
And I'm the entire reason why H-Bomber Guy and Mandalore Gaming made pathologic videos. Because I was like, please save this franchise in the comment section. And then they heard me and they printed out my comment and framed it on the wall. And they're like, just for you, Keith, I'm going to work on this video for 4 months.
I can believe that.
But I'm just in a cloud of 5,000 people that are all leaving fucking comments everywhere.
I do think, sorry to burst your bubble, Keith, literally. Well, not literally, but yeah. I think he had mentioned...
my literal bubble.
I think H-Bomber Guy mentioned Pathologic in one of his early videos in passing. Like, he knew about the game, at least.
No.
Oh, I'm sure he...
Wrong.
Are you sure? I'm pretty sure
Factually
he.
incorrect.
I remember him saying things about Pathologic before his big video on Pathologic.
That was because he talked to me first.
Yeah, that was I was that baby.
But let's go back to Andrew's. Why are video games bad because of you?
Well,
Because they say every video game's garbage, so everyone just stopped trying. Because there's no way to
You broke the will of the games industry. It was
There's
you.
no, I mean, if you're never going to make anything good, why bother trying at all, right? And that's why we have Cyberpunk. That's the
Andrew
culmination
made
of
Cyberpunk. I made Fallout 3.
decades of me just saying all video games are garbage. And there's like, fine, we'll actually make garbage then. Here,
That's what
fucking
they're
enjoy.
doing. Yeah. That's the
It's like,
AAA gaming is the. Remember when Fallout 76 wanted €100 or $100 a year?
They
That
wanted
was
you
the
to
times.
pay for the game again every year, basically, because they're trying to make a live service.
More than again, the game doesn't cost
Yeah.
100.
Yeah,
It
they're
costs
trying to
27.
make like a live service Fallout game. It's like, hey, people play our games for 300 hours and brag about it. What if we trick them into continually paying for it more instead of just modding it forever? How do we get rid of
I say
mods?
this
We gotta
because-
get rid of mods.
I said,
tried
yeah,
that.
that's what they did basically.
that did-
Yeah.
Isn't
That
it
did not go
unbelievable?
well.
Isn't it unbelievable that that's what Bethesda ended up doing with their new Fallout game? Is they got rid of mods for Fallout. They released the game that can't be modded.
Well, yeah,
I mean,
because
you
it's
can,
not.
but-
It doesn't make enough money.
I mean, they released a game that has its own unique mods in the form of bugs. Like the game is yeah.
All games are made
Game
via
Fear.
like top-down choices by some detached executive that runs the company but doesn't have to actually deal with making the game, and especially doesn't care about like what makes franchises good or what the audience wants, but just what will make money and what makes business sense or whatever. So they'll be like, yeah, we'll take that single-player RPG and turn it into a multiplayer live service game with no mods when we're the most famous company in all of the world for moddable games.
Yeah.
Fallout 76 is basically what happens if you were to install a new copy of Skyrim and then have somebody go on the Steam Marketplace, download a bunch of random mods for Skyrim, and then you start the game up having no knowledge what those mods are. And so
They
every
just
time
jump
you
scare
play,
you.
every time you're playing, something new and weird happens, and you can't figure out if that's part of the game or if that's a mod that got installed.
That's
And
kind of an
76.
interesting playthrough like concept.
Like,
Yeah, they do
it's-
that with the Dark Souls every once in a while.
Like
There's
I
mods to Dark
remember,
Souls.
I remember Skyrim. I had a mod where it turned the horse into Johnny Wasau
Oh
or
god.
Tommy Wasau, and so like the horse looked like him and just said the lines from the room.
Why
and-
won't you love me?
Yeah, so like
I
every
did
time you
not.
summoned it, yeah, so every time you summon it, it's like I didn't hit her. I was like, what the fuck? I was like, what is this? Like I had
was
no
str-
concept. Like
Just
I had no
a-
concept of what
yeah.
it was.
It's all
Yeah,
memes
it
without
just-
context. Although
Yeah,
it
and
was
so,
pretty
like-
funny though when they replaced dragons with Thomas the Tank Engine and he just come charging through and terrorizing the town.
Memes without context. That's like reading Reddit on the last week page.
It's like watching a foreign language comedy film and not knowing the language.
So Fallout 76 is like even on an actual game design perspective, it's really baffling because it's not baffling as in like I understand what they were going for, but it's just bad because it's a game that what is the game about? I played it for a little bit, so for like 4 or 5 hours, so I only have that much experience. But as far as I can tell, it's a
I
game
couldn't
about
get
gathering.
anyone to play it with me, so I never played it.
Fallout 76.
Yeah. I wasn't gonna do it alone. I was like,
Don't do it alone. It's a
definitely
game
have to
about
laugh at
gathering.
it with someone.
It's a game about gathering resources, as in the form of junk around this post-nuclear wasteland where everything was gone to shit. And then you carry those resources to a base that you made, and you deconstruct them into materials so that you can make more things. So the incentive behind you doing that is necessarily making a base, right? But the
That
problem
was
with
just the
making a
shitty
base,
part of Fallout 4.
yeah.
Well, there was many
absolutely,
shitty parts of Fallout 4, but people pretending
yes.
that the base building had depth were frustrating.
It takes way too long for what it is. If what you can accomplish, I think personally, what you can accomplish in 5 hours of building a base in Fallout 4, you could accomplish in 10 minutes, it would be a good thing. But you can't because it's so obtuse. It's such a weird it's a weird part of the game. Either way, the point is, it's just a game that Fallout 76 is just a game that focuses on you gathering materials and building new things. But every single gameplay mechanic, like carry weight, or the actual inventory management, or the lack of sorting, or the lack of ability to store things properly, every single thing is made so that it is difficult for you to carry materials around and use them. It's like a mobile game. You know how mobile games are done? Like the point of the mobile game is killing enemies, but every single aspect of the game is sort of like designed to make you kill enemies less efficiently, so that they can sell you like microtransactions so it can make it easier. Except in the case of Fallout 76, they don't actually sell you microtransactions to make it easier. They just make it hard on purpose. And it's baffling. It's one
of the things just kind of thrown together in the form that it is, just for the sake of it, but without any like it's like just the tools they had on hand, and it's not necessarily built from the ground up for the actual intended playstyle they're encouraging. It's like I don't know what Fortnite's like now, because boy do I have no interest. But I played the first day of Fortnite when it became a battle royale, and I had played like 10 hours of the co-op campaign that existed before it became a battle royale. The Fortnite people actually know as Fortnite, and I was so confused because the entire building system in Fortnite is incredibly, bafflingly clunky and full of a billion completely redundant structure things that you would never want to actually build for any reason except for just aesthetics. Like, you can make your beautiful, carefully crafted, shitty wooden fort that has you can add archways, like over like instead of just being like, here's shack walls and here's the entrance because there's no wall there and here's a floor and a ceiling. Like, you basically just need floors, ceilings, walls, and stairs, and you're basically done with what you would need for a battle royale. But they have you can add when you have an open wall, you can, like that opening there, you can have like triangular inserts on the corners to like curve the corners to make it kind of an arch and like look like an entryway, and like you can really pretty it up. There's a huge number of redundant things you can add, like support beams and things like that. And then I played the battle royale, and it was full of all that, and it was still the most awkward, like, take your hands off of all of the real buttons you use to play the game and reach over here and press really weird combinations of buttons to navigate this strange building menu that's full of shit like weird diagonal corner inserts and shit in your competitive shooter. And it's like, when most of these don't have a purpose, but also like the controls are so trash and bizarre and badly implemented that you can't, like, who would, like, it was insane that they expected you to build stuff in the middle of a firefight, because you were supposed to be building between the waves in a really chill, like, wave-based shooter where you basically, I think you could just tell the game when to start happening again. Like, it was designed for that pacing, and they forced it into a battle royale just because A, their game was failing and they were desperate, and B, that's just what was popular and what they could easily convert their existing engine into for lower cost. And so they just did it. So that's like the Fallout shit, where it's like, none of these things fit together, but just fucking, we want this, we got these tools, that's going to be that. Star Fox Adventures.
In hindsight, that was one of the most successful and well thought out decisions in the gaming industry.
The fact that they just made it a battle royale.
That they ruined Fortnite, yeah.
Yeah. But that doesn't mean that it was good in terms of making a game good.
For sure. Yeah, I'm not debating that.
It was just like, it was
kind
just
of interesting.
We have the resources, and this is the timing, and then they did it, and it worked out for them, and that's it.
It's
and they abused all of their employees to do it.
Yeah, that too.
Hooray!
And they continued to.
Yep.
And they get more money from
crunch, trying to get
they get
more and
money
more
from a
content
despotic
out.
Government that imprisons
Such
people.
trash content too.
Like I said,
Fortnite?
when I said
Look,
video games,
wow, we got to crunch and ruin people's lives so they can make more skins.
Yeah.
Well, in fairness, and even though they're shit, everybody does it, and everybody's shit.
That doesn't, again, it goes back to, I think I ruined video games by saying
well, yeah,
everything's
the
garbage,
industry's
so
a
they just
nightmare.
made garbage now.
That's just the capitalistic system. You know how it is. If they have more money, they have more say over the employees, and then they are allowed to, well, not allowed, but the employees, what are the employees going to do? Go work somewhere else?
There's always the frustrating back and forth where it's like people get really mad about a controversy about a particular game and how that particular developer abuses their employees and so on. And then I'm like, yes, join me in the indie sphere, come here. And they're like, no, I'm just going to pivot to this other AAA company because they're better. And like, they're not though. They just haven't they just haven't gone viral for being bad this year. In many cases, they've gone viral for being bad last year.
The problem is but the problem is you can't survive that way. There's no way to like.
No, it's almost impossible to like. I'm gonna consume ethically. It's almost like there's a phrase for this.
No. There's no consumption that is ethical. That's not the consumption. Isn't the part that you need to worry about.
I mean that like, there's no way you could survive as a reasonable adult without working at a real established business. Because like you need healthcare if you have children. Like what are you going to pay for their medical stuff? It's not going to.
That's why it's a systemic issue.
Oh no! When I said join me in the indie, I was saying that about the consumers. Like let's leave the horrible AAA world behind. Not saying that everybody should like quit their jobs. Although that would definitely. Actually, that would potentially reshape everything in a positive way, ultimately.
Yes, but that's how you do it.
If people bought way more indie games, then there'd be a much better cottage industry of people being borderline self-employed instead of working for nightmare conglomerates. But everyone's like, I need the graphics.
Nah.
People complain about the graphics so often on games that are great looking.
I'm going to say this right now. It's 2021. Games still look like games. You failed. Give it up. Graphics aren't going to ever look like the fucking real world, and I don't give a shit anymore.
Graphics will never look better than Azuric for the Xbox.
I don't agree with you. I every time, like I play a lot of old games and indie games, and every time I play a new game, I'm baffled by how good it looks.
I'm never going to think that I'm actually standing in a Banjo-Kazooie world, and all that really matters
and
to me.
that's the height.
And that's it. If you cannot make me feel like I'm literally Banjo-Kazooie inside of TikTok Mountain and this is real life, then you have failed to make a fundamental, good graphical video game.
There are shops on Etsy where you can buy a suit and then you put a VR headset on.
And what? Sit
turn
in
on the
darkness because
RTX.
no one's ever made a good-looking replication of that.
Turn the RTX on and then you're good to go.
But I am taken aback by how the fidelity level at times when I play like the newest Capcom game and I'm like, oh my god. Or like when I played The Last of Us Part 2 or God of War, which I was like, and in many cases I'm like a year late to these games and I'm like, oh fuck.
And they look amazing.
This is really impressive.
I'm playing Prey right now from 2017 and
it's not. That's what frustrates me. Like God of War is a good example. It's like, wow, this looks amazing. This would be great if it had a game to play.
Because in many cases, the games are like the way that their employees are treated and like the amount of money put into it. I'm like, this just doesn't feel worth it for this fidelity level. Like it's like the novelty is there, but you kind of get used to it and then you get over it. But also, it often comes at the expense of the game because like these incredibly beautiful games are often incredibly clunky because there's so many concessions made to make them look good all the time. So like the camera has to be kind of annoying because it's always a third person camera where your character's on the far right of the screen, and so your like rotational axis is wrong and you can't see your feet, and like it's a camera not designed to be played but to look good and be cinematic. And the actions are always like animation priority, which is good for something like Dark Souls or Monster Hunter, but applying it to every genre willy-nilly isn't necessarily a good thing. Like it has a genre purpose, not just a cinematic purpose. But they're like, no, if we make the animations play a specific way all the time, then it can never look bad. And then that also comes with like your character has to walk with like this irritating inertia that we've been complaining about ever since the first Red Dead Redemption, where you would like try to walk in a door but you slightly miss, then you try to turn around to walk back in the same door, but his turning radius is so fucking wide he walks into the other side of the door and you're like, motherfucker, just go in the direction the joystick's going.
But Rockstar, who are shit, are also stuck in GTA 4 mode since GTA 4. So Rockstar is a bit of an outlier in regards to the animations, I feel.
Yeah, but I just mean like there's concessions made to make the games look good that often actively hinder the playing of the game.
I beat God of War. I would never play it again. I've played the old God of Wars multiple times. But like I would never play the new God of War again. It sucked, dude. It was such a pain.
I think I was not a fan of God of War as a franchise, so I actually liked the reboot more, but I had a lot of gripes with it still.
I wanted a hack and slash. What the fuck happened? That's the whole premise of the game. It's a hack and slash game. Jesus Christ. And now it's like, well, do you want to babysit for fucking 60 hours? was like, no.
To be fair, I don't
really
think I don't
don't.
think it like had any babysitting mechanics.
Every time I was in the middle of doing
there just
anything,
was another character along
here's
the
a
ride.
cutscene where the boy fucks something up, and now something goes on. Fucking damn it, kids! Sit
Yeah,
the
but
fuck down.
but it
I'm
wasn't like an
doing
escort
something.
quest game. You weren't
It's
having to deal with
but
Atreyu.
problem- But okay, so the juxtaposition here
Atreus?
is when you play the original God of War,
Is
it's
Atreyu the horse that dies in the Swamp of Sorrows?
I don't remember.
In a
I
never-ending story.
Like the thing is, like with original God of War, it's basically like what happens if you gave a train 2 giant fucking blades and just made it keep going forward and spin them. Like nothing could stop you but your own inability to kill things. You're literally a force of nature constantly moving forward. But like in the new God of War, you fucking called it God of War, you fucking asshole. Like there's a whole goddamn fucking trilogy. And so like God
At
of
that
War
point, there was like 6 games.
Yeah, like whatever, God of War 2018 or whatever the fuck these shitty titles are. Like then it gets rid of the whole idea, and it's like now it's a big sprawling narrative where you're not only is like the main game still technically canon, but we're not going to talk about it. Kind of, we're going to reference it, but we're not going to like. You didn't have to play those games. It doesn't matter. And so God of War, not that God of War, this God of War, doesn't like all the combat is really stiff and clunky because it feels like it wants to be Dark Souls, but it's not going to commit to the Dark Souls combat, which is I don't like Dark Souls combat, but at least it's functional. Like you can play Dark Souls combat and like it works in the concept of like fighting the enemies. Where in God of War it feels like ass, where you're like, okay, I have 3 weapons. Switching to different weapons can be smooth, except like you have to switch to weapons while doing a middle of a combo, or else it's an awkward switch. And doing that switch takes away time from you, and that time is something you need to continually doing attacks, because like the whole point of when you're doing boss fights is you need to be like ramping up attacks multiple times. But like you need to be swapping the types of attacks you do based on the different types of enemies you're fighting. And so you have 3 weapons, multiple different moves for those weapons, and different bosses that you fight that you do different combos with on them. And none of it feels rewarding or fun. It feels like a complicated mess that only at the end of the day looks good. Like when you watch it back, it looks really fucking cool. But when you're playing it, you're sitting there like, I'm gonna fucking throw this controller on the fucking world. Like, stop. This sucks. Like, I just want to kill him. Like, why can't I just kill the guy? Like, fuck, dude. They even give you the stupid blades from fucking God of War, and they suck. Like, how did you fuck this up? Like, the blades from the original God of War are the best fucking weapons ever made in a hack and slash game. They're seriously the fucking penultimate weapon. You're just a nightmare fucking tornado.
He uses that a lot.
Well, because the greatest weapon of all time is always a gun. But
the penultimate doesn't refer to
save.
quality at all, though.
whatever. Sorry, I keep
Good
thinking
good
that.
save. That was
It's
a good
the
save.
ultimate fucking weapon of all time in a hack and slash game. It seriously is. You feel so good using those weapons because you're just literally a tornado. You're spinning around. You're doing fucking weird cartwheels with your arms. You're doing. People are just like, "What the fuck is this a dance recital? What the fuck's going on?"
There's such an
Kratos, calm
intense
down.
style to that weapon.
It's so good.
It's a weapon that
love it.
it's a weapon that doesn't even work with a third-person following camera.
No,
Because you
that's why it's
literally
so
you have to have that
irritating.
long distance Devil May Cry
they could
Bayonetta
have zoomed the camera
because
back.
the weapon's designed to be seen in its like full
They could've-
scale in like the Borderland first person camera. You're like you're just seeing forward. You don't even see what the chains are doing.
Or alternatively, Colonel, they could have just not added them to the fucking game.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, you could have just made a game without these fucking iconic weapons that have a very specific and unique feel to them, that then you give it to me and I go, finally, some fucking real food. And then I start playing them. I'm like, how did you fuck this up? Like, this is the one thing I wanted. You give it to me and it sucks. Fuck. Like, it's so baffling how God of War just looks phenomenal, but is just such a bad game at its core because it isn't a God of War game. And it's like, why? Why did you do this?
I think
you could have just fucking made anything else. Like, you could have made a Norse mythology version of God of War and just not fucking called it that. Like, it would have been okay. I would have liked it more. because it would have had no pre-existing love or nostalgia for a series that you then just like threw on the ground and went like, yeah, but that's not what gamers want to play. And I'm like, I don't fucking care about them.
It is a victim of the PlayStation first party nightmare where there's just every game has to be the Order 1866, which is the one I always laugh about because that's the one that didn't do well. But it's always this exact same third person cinematic camera. Everything moves at this pace. It has this exact style of graphical fidelity and rendering style, and like all their popular franchises slowly converge into being the same style until games that should be way more different than they are, like God of War and Horizon Zero Dawn and Uncharted, are more similar than they should be. Like they're not the same games, but boy, there's so much more range to what a video game can be, and those settings and ideas support those completely different play styles. And it's shown in part because of the fact that you take a game like God of War that has history and you're like, yeah, that's what it was like before. Like it was a completely different style of game, but they were like, nah, like Devil May Cry might sell copies, but the PlayStation style, the thing that we think sells copies, is this exact formula. But so basically everything has to be that formula, unless it's like something like fucking Spider-Man where they can't figure out how to force it to be that.
But even Spider-Man does do that sometimes. Like when you walk up to doing the cutscenes for stuff, it puts the camera in your fucking shoulder and zooms out a little bit, and you're like, motherfucker, stop doing it. I'm gonna fucking kill you. Stop. And it's a unit mover. That's all it is. These games just exist to sell more PlayStations or sell more Xbox or whatever. And that's so depressingly boring. Because I don't want to buy a console to play a same game. I want to buy a console because it has a game that I can't get anywhere else. I can get shoulder blade camera interesting game. It's called Sekiro. It's on the fucking goddamn everything. Just play that. It's a better game. Like, fuck. Like it's.
Do you know what else? Fallout New Vegas also does that. The over the shoulder third person camera.
There's but nobody uses it.
Nobody. But if you zoom out, it does that as well.
Sekiro doesn't have a shoulder camera though.
No, I'm saying like specifically if you want to like look behind somebody, like if you want to have a fun combat game where you look behind your character, Sekiro's on every console. You don't need or on everything, every platform. You don't need to buy a fucking PlayStation to get the whatever God of War thinks it's offering you. Go buy like a better game on any platform. You don't need a PS4 to experience this. Like
it is nice that From Software still uses the correct third-person camera.
Could you imagine playing Dark Souls like that? You're just like, I'm gonna roll now, and you like, oh, something on my left.
I can because that's what
God
of War was like.
See that. Like,
also that game with the dead people. What was it called? The corpse game.
Mortal Shell.
Mortal Shell. Yeah. That also is over the shoulder. Right?
There's been a few games that try to crunch the difference between a Dark Souls game and modern AAA PS4 style like popular games and try to figure out how to mix the two styles, and it's just not. It just doesn't fit well. Cameras are supposed to serve their purpose of being able to see stuff, like having it be just about making the game look good. Like get this perfect angle where you see all this fidelity of your character's visuals. I'm immediately mad if a third-person camera doesn't have my character centered on the screen so that my fucking rotational axis doesn't even fucking follow the middle of the screen. Like it should be a symmetrical rotation. Like how insane is it to think about how many third-person shooters there are out there with competitive modes where you fight other players, where every single person just sees more to their right than they see to the left.
God of War, or not God of
like,
War.
You just see more in one direction than the other one because your camera's to the right for some reason. Not to mention just the irritation of how in competitive shooters it's really stupid that you can hide behind a wall but still see past it. Like I hate that. I hate that. Where you can either take cover or just crouch somewhere and your camera can see the whole area, so you can ambush people without having to take the risk of actually exposing yourself, which just makes the game shittier.
Yeah, third person just is a camera that is overused. And I think in a multiplayer scenario...
Melee only. Melee only. If your game doesn't have melee, it should be first person.
Even in Melee, if it's single player, it's so exploitable. Like every time I do that in a single player game where I know I'm looking around a corner even though my character can't see around the corner, I know exactly that I'm doing something
Yeah,
wrong.
but not, I don't care about cheating against NPCs.
No, it's fair enough.
I just think it's really stupid if you're playing like Overwatch and you're like, well, my Widowmaker can see around corners, but not in like the way where she uses her actual abilities to do it, which have cooldowns and costs, but just like, no, like I can play in third person mode as Tracer,
Ball
so I
does
can
that.
see everybody. Yeah,
Ball
but
can do
Ball's
that 'cause
weird.
Yeah, but he gets a third-person camera and he can just sit behind a wall and see people walking forward. It's
Yeah.
really shitty. I hate
It's like
that.
I think it's Ball and Reinhardt.
Reinhardt technically can.
Reinhardt ambushing is the funniest concept ever, though.
Yeah, like it's a really odd choice, but
Also, it's got to be unwieldy because you need to have the shield out.
yeah. So you have the shield out. You just stand a little bit behind, so they can't see the shield poking out through the door.
Yeah.
And then you just turn the camera, and you can see people
Yeah, I know.
walking through the wall, and it's just like, all right, well. You could also, I mean, Overwatch is also a fucking mess sometimes. Like, if you're in the spawn, you can technically see other people's spawns.
Really?
Yeah, there. So like some of the cameras for like changing your character are at were like for a while we're at other people's spawns, and so the one of the strategies was to wait in spawn room until the other team spawned, because you would see them all leave out the door, and you can
And
see
you
what
know
they picked.
what they were.
Yeah,
That's really funny.
Video games are especially competitive video games, are just full of fucking weird messes.
Weird
sometimes.
mistakes.
But cameras are rough. Cameras are a hard thing to try
Yeah.
to figure out how to place on people properly, and I understand that. I get that. But don't put them in a way. If you're ever making a camera and you go, man, this is a great cinematic angle, you failed at making a camera. Take it away. Do it again. It needs to be a camera that says, wow, this feels great to use. Like, this feels great to look around with. Because that's what it's there for. The camera isn't there for me to get impressed. It's there for me to functionally be able to play your game. Like, that's the only reason I can see.
It's the difference between visceral and cerebral, basically.
It's the difference between a game and a movie. I don't want to
Oh,
play
also
a
that.
movie. I want to play a game. If
But
you want
but
to
you
make
can-
a movie, make a movie.
But you can have that sort of cinematic appeal in games without sacrificing gameplay.
That's called a cutscene, and that is the time to use cinematic cameras, not the game. You can do the little cute thing that some games do, where it's like, press the trigger to zoom in on the thing, and then your camera gets taken away from you and it goes to a nice object or whatever. That's fine. You can do that, where I'm given the choice if I give a shit or not. But don't make the presumptuous choice that I care more about seeing the world that you've crafted more than I care about seeing my character. And because I don't, I never do.
The problem is, it's people playing. I'm being facetious now. It's people playing the first Tomb Raider, and you know how in first Tomb Raider you basically lock your third person. You're in third person view, and you lock your character onto the enemies with a button, and then you fire with another button, and you don't even need to look at the enemies. And it's super. It's like Lara will just shoot the enemies if she sees them, as long as you're locked onto them. And
I mean,
people didn't
it's-
like that. People played that game and it was like, yeah, well, the shooting could be a little bit more like Doom. And then they made the new Tomb Raiders, where it is a little bit like Doom. You kill a lot of people in those games.
My thing too is
Doom
like,
is a confusing comparison, maybe.
yeah, Doom's kind of weird.
It was from back then, though.
It's more like
just-
Nathan Drake. It's just Tomb Raider just kills a lot of people.
Well, yeah,
and
that's
just don't
exactly what
talk about it.
happened.
Yeah.
And asinine people will be like, Tomb Raider's what inspired Uncharted. It's like, yeah, but stuff doesn't exist in a vacuum. And yeah, like Uncharted was so popular that Tomb Raider was just like, we're going to make Uncharted games. And so they were specifically like everything, in every way that Uncharted differed from previous Tomb Raider games became what the next Tomb Raider games were.
I'm not. I don't want to like. I'm
It was
being
an
facetious because
inspiration Orbis.
I'm being facetious because obviously there are people who enjoy this
or
sort
an
of gameplay.
inspiration
And
69.
Gross.
nice. I was.
Video games are just pooping back and forth between each other.
No.
It's no, I honestly I would, if you like some kind of way overpaid, out of touch jackass comes up and says there has to be a cinematic camera, at the very least give me the functionality to take it away. Like, give me like a setting in the settings where I can say, turn off this fucking awful camera, and like bring it back to normal real video game world. So that way I can just enjoy the game.
I hit a point in God of War where I was like, okay, I see what this game is. It's just this big visual spectacle that you like lightly interact with, and you have a series of cooldowns and super abilities. So whenever a fight happens, you pretty much just rotate between all of them. You just press all of your buttons to do the big showy attacks, and then the fight's over. And if you really fuck up, then you have to start over and try again. But for the most part, it was like kind of mindless and showy, and it was kind of fun in that way as just being showy and silly. But then at the end of the game, they're like, but we want you to care about our mechanics now. So they're like, here's this like roguelike dungeon of infinite grinding, and here's this series of like, was it the Valkyries you're supposed to fight, and they're all like increasingly difficult mega bosses, but they're also kind of look the same, so it's kind of lacking in content, but also like they demand so much of you, and I'm like, this game isn't really designed to be hard. Like, it doesn't really, its mechanics don't really stand up to that level of intensity. This isn't like Fury or something where everything's really tight and reliable, and the camera and the controls are on your side. Like, they're kind of not, they don't really enable that kind of play style, so you're kind of forced, like, I'm sure I know there's people that like it, but it's not really a system that feels like it is supported by the game around it. And so it's just like the game, it's going to be much more frustrating than it ever needed to be, just because the game doesn't really play well when you take it to that level, and for many reasons, including the fact that its camera is just the worst for fighting like mobile bosses. Like, they're all jumping around and hopping around, and the screen's covered in 50 particle effects and poison effects, and that shit's happening, and your attacks fill the screen with all their spectacle, and it's just, you so quickly just can't even tell what you're seeing on the screen, and the animations are so clunky and specific that like you can't like react to things correctly. So like any game, if you practice enough, you'll get there. And some people just see any challenge as a thing that's worthy and that they want to see and everything. But like, compared to so many other games, including the ones that are famously hard these days, God of War just didn't feel designed for any of that endgame content to be ideal. So I was just like, no, which is just a thing I do in certain playthroughs where I'm just like, not that part. Nope. Because it's
I did it. I beat all the Valkyries. I killed.
Yeah, you were
every
very
single
mad.
Yes.
That was back when I used to come to your house to play Zero Escape, and you were having a new venting process each week over your experience of playing God of War.
And I broke that game still, by the way. I managed to make that game shit itself.
Because you break every game somehow.
I got my son. I bullied my son into the ledge of an elevator, and I was trying to kill him. And instead, he started phasing out of existence. And so he was
That's better.
He was basically pulsating so fast that
Dad, I don't feel so good.
so I was sitting there, and I was like, I was looking. I was like, oh, okay, so I guess we're supposed to reach there. And then I turned the camera around, I'm like, boy, what the fuck are you? Boy, stop! What are you doing? He's like, I was like, boy, get it! What are you doing? It's like, you're phasing out of the. You can't leave me alone. I want to leave. And he's like, pop, and he just like phased back into normal. And I was like, all right.
They had a fallback.
There's just to talk about like the cost of this amalgaming of video games, or just like amalgaming what. Homogenization of video games. It's a lot like cinema.
Everything.
That's part of what I'm talking about. Is fucking Thanos. Is the it's like how modern movies, like so much back when we had theaters, so much of the entire screen space in theaters was dedicated entirely to not only competing superhero franchises, but multiple movies from the same superhero franchise that were airing in parallel. And then like Star Wars and a couple of other things. But like one specific style of blockbuster thing, including just this endless deluge of competing superhero franchises, just became all that you saw in theaters. It was like those and a handful of animated children's films. And then almost nothing else would ever make it into theaters. And the stuff that did make it into theaters that wasn't those things would just get quickly replaced by more of those things. Like you could look at the show times for any movie, and like anything that wasn't that stuff would be replaced quicker, and the stuff that was those things would stick around for longer and longer. And in many cases, like, this is like a demand thing. Like, it's the audience's fault in some cases that they keep specifically pouring all their money into this thing.
No, it's Disney's fault. It's
Yeah,
Disney's
well, it's Disney is in its complete continued monopolization and so on. But that's also like another thing that's being sort of enabled by people giving them disproportionate amounts of money all the time too. Like there's a back and forth here to some extent, and so to some extent,
Well,
like
the thing-
it's often that people just don't look any deeper into these medias, so they just. That's the total of what they consume in many cases. It's just like this is the big popular thing, and that's all I hear about. And I won't really try to look for other stuff, and so they just consume the popular thing. So it kind of has a feedback loop until that
But
becomes
you have
all
to
that there
consider-
is.
You have to consider that Disney knows that in advance.
Yeah.
They rely on the people. You know, it's that feeling of you're rewatching a TV series that you've watched 5 times already instead of looking for something new. It's just
Yeah.
because it's comfort food, basically. And Disney preys on that sort of feeling, and they know that people go to the cinema and they don't really know what they were going to watch, and then there's this franchise that I already sort of know out, which is for me it's completely baffling because I personally if I go to the theater I'm like I'm going to watch something new, I'm going to be engaged. I don't want to be.
Oh
it's
yeah,
not
like
comfort
even when
food.
people find out that a Star Wars movie is bad, they'll still watch it over a movie that sounds like it's supposed to be good.
Yeah.
Because Star Wars.
I'm not saying this as I'm not trying to judge the people that do that. It's totally fine if you want comfort, because you do your
Yeah,
own time
it's
is what you want.
just part of why this becomes
But
what we
Disney
have.
does it on purpose,
Because
though.
video games are the same way though, where it's like people
Yeah.
for years just fucking obsessing over Cyberpunk, for example, and they just will not stop hyping it infinitely. Or like the fact that like Sony is eternally rewarded for amalgamating all their games into the same fucking similar thing because like this formula sells, and it's because it's like because people keep buying that because they're afraid of
Or
new
Call
and
of
different
Duty,
things, and they
or
evade
Electronic
it.
Arts.
Anything
Yeah.
that looks different, they're like, gross. Some indie bullshit. Like it's really informative to look to like subscribe to like the Sony like the PlayStation YouTube account where they'll post like the thumbnail, they'll post the trailers that they use on their storefront, like kind of like Steam. Like they have video trailers and they're like hosted on their YouTube account, and it's like seeing how like your average console owner type audience member reacts to like anything that's outside of the norm, often like just derisively or actively hostile, and it's often like really interesting indie games, and it's like anything that sticks out is just bad. They don't seek new experiences, they reject them, and that's part of why we get the way we are. And it's been rough because I look at these comments on my like MDK playthrough, and they're informative, and I'm not saying that they're not those kinds of comments. It's just like people being like just kind of seeing what we missed here. Like there's somebody that laments the fact that like you have the power and tech to make anything these days without compromise, and you don't have to. You don't even have to like improvise the thing. You don't have to like compromise any of the shit. You can just go. You can make MDK but incredible. But instead, people are chasing the fucking realism specter forever, and like they're like AAA games almost refuse to make anything like MDK these days. And then like another comment's like, every darn time I play an FPS, I think, why is there always a level where you jump on mirrors and then luge? And now I finally know. And it's like, oh, it's an ironic comment because this is not a thing in video games, because literally part 2 of my playthrough I'm already in a level where it's like there's a beautiful skybox, at least for the time. Like it's beautiful, it's just it's pixely and shit, and the entire level in some cases, every floor and platform is a mirror that just reflects the skybox again, and so you only tell where you are via the contrast between the two, but the whole thing is just so striking and beautiful and original and bizarre looking. And then you lose. Like you're fucking like sliding down these tunnels, and just like this is such an insane thing where like a lot of the time the verbs are really familiar. You jump, you glide, you shoot, you snipe, but then you do weird things like snowboard and luge and things like that. And the levels are doing this fucking bizarre shit, and it's like, why not? Why not ever do things like this anymore?
Also, when you turn I think the camera itself is interesting, because when you turn it, the screen all tilts, and it adds this little really. It feels to me, I'm not playing it obviously, but it feels to me like it just adds this really interactive feel to the moving of the camera, just because it's the whole world is tilting. It's like almost driving a car, except it's not.
It's a game that pulls off so many strange things. Like the protagonist is 2D. but he reacts to every part of the gameplay like he should, including like having different poses for all these different actions, like luging and stuff, but also like he'll like mantle onto ledges believably, despite
That
not
was
even
a-
existing
when
in
I
the same
saw that-
dimension as the 3D the 3D ledge.
When I saw that for the first time, I was like, "Wow, that is impressive."
Yeah, this is it's a hell of a trip. And then there's neat elements like how when you snipe, you have what seems to be the most extreme possible zoom of any game I've ever seen. I don't think you can zoom that far with a sniper in Sniper Elite games. Like, it's such a ridiculous sci-fi sniper rifle, and they were pulling off such good draw distances even at that time with the graphics they had, that you can just infinitely zoom across incredible expanses until you're like zooming like 100 times deep. I think it literally caps out at a times 100 zoom.
It's not draw distance though, Keith. They don't do it with draw distance. What they do when you zoom in, they actively physically move the camera towards wherever you're aiming. It's not like draw.
It's a trick.
So
yeah.
basically, it's a trick. Yeah.
But I just mean the fact that they can seamlessly do that, and like they're pulling that off back then, and it's great. And they're doing it multiple times at a time, because not only do you zoom in, but every time you fire a gun, your sniper rifle, there's a split screen on the top of the screen where 3 separate cameras will follow the trajectory of your bullets 3 at a time. So if you fire a bullet, you get like a it's like the movie Wanted, where the fucking camera follows your bullet all the way to its destination, including it blinking out into the skybox, and it does that for 3 separate bullets at a time, in addition to showing your actual perspective in the middle of the screen. And it's like there's just so much nutso shit happening, and it's like a 1997 PC game that's like a fucking evolutionary dead end of video games. And every time I see that, I'm just kind of sad when like I see interesting shit from the 90s and 2000s that we just decided not to ever follow up on again.
Have you ever played the first Half-Life?
I played it for like half, like I don't know what half a session means. I played it for like one session, like once for a bit. So I saw like the opening bad happening, and like jumped around a bit.
What I'm
and
thinking
I was like,
is
this
that
is very old.
What I'm thinking is that this phenomenon that made MDK sort of disappear, and MDK like games,
is cinematic games,
is very common. And for an example of that is Half-Life 1 and comparing it to Half-Life 2. I mean, they're both good games. I prefer Half-Life 1, but the ending of Half-Life 1, you literally go to an alien planet where the gravity is different, and there's like bumpers where you jump up in a Sonic
and
level.
It's hated by most people, I believe.
Yes, it is really difficult. That level is way too difficult for what it is. But I feel that if it were a little bit easier, people wouldn't hate it. And you have an alien gun.
Goes.
Whenever I play
a really, really, really bad game that's really frustrating, my usual takeaway is like, if it's going to be this bad, like the least they could do is just make the game easier, because then it would be like anything that's just easier is less hated, because at least you don't have to like suffer the whole time. You could just get through the stupid game and be like, all right, well, that was bad, but
I personally never beat Half-Life 1
I didn't want to die
because the last level is so difficult. But the thing is, it's so out there, but the thing is, Half-Life 1 also has remember the spitting dogs? I don't know if you've ever seen them, if you've not played too much. They had these little dogs that are like Vortigons, but dogs, and they spit at you some acid, and they're like a major part of the gameplay. A lot of levels revolve around you dealing with them. They don't appear in Half-Life 2. And Half-Life 2 just always felt to me, first off, it's weird because it's like, it starts in media res. It feels like Half-Life 3 instead of Half-Life 2. There's a lot of stuff that happened in between the two games that doesn't get told, and so it's always weird. But Half-Life 2 always felt like
told now, though.
Oh yeah, that's yeah.
It's got a
but
prequel.
It always feels like
finally
real. It feels like just let's make Half-Life again, but this time realistic and serious, because the first one isn't serious at all ever. The scientists are goofy, and
they're all dying comically, and it's the same like 3 scientists repeating over and over again.
And they play on it as well, and oh my god, it's also like not just it's goofy, but it's also a serious game in the gaming industry. It innovated with its intro, and it innovated with the technology.
Do you
itself.
have opinions about whether someone should play Half-Life 1 or Black Mesa?
I feel Black Mesa is a better.
That'll be a choice I have to make at some point.
Because it's the same
Do I
thing.
play the authentic original game, or do I play like the fan remake?
I'm sorry, what was the hate?
Yeah,
with
the Black
Half-Life
Mesa is just
1?
a remake. It's basically the same
didn't-
game except better graphics.
Yeah, I didn't think that Half-Life 1 was a relatively bad game. I mean, it has
It was okay.
It has some like, okay, this is an old video game stuff to it, but nothing like where you mechanically go like, all right, fuck this game. Like there has to be
It's
a
a
better
modern
version.
shooter. Even
No,
though,
yeah.
like
I'm just
they
talking
made
about how I have the question of where I have to choose one or the other eventually. Because I'm not going to fucking play both. That's silly.
It depends on what you care about. If you want the game to, most likely just play Black Mesa because it's modern, so it's going to
agree,
run
yeah.
without any issue, and it's going to look a little bit nicer, and you don't have to run
looks
the
really
risk
good.
of.
I think I just
good,
anticipate the frustration of what will happen no matter what, which is that whichever one I pick is wrong. The comments will just all be telling me that you should be playing the original game if you've never played it. You should be playing having your experience colored by a fan remake. And then if I play the original game, they're like, there's a fucking HD good version now, right? You can play the fucking beautiful, well-liked game that came out this year. Why are you playing this trash from 1997? And it's like, no matter what, I'll be told I'm wrong. It's like how every time I talk about playing Thief, I get a different opinion about what difficulty I should play it on, and I'm just like, ugh.
Oh, I can help you in that because I finished Thief 1 recently.
Yeah, but it's just, they're mutually exclusive unless I want to be a crazy person and play the game twice, or even play every level twice. Like, because at one point, one of the solutions in my head was like, I'll play every level on normal mode and then our hard mode every time every time.
That's not good.
But like the only game I think I'd ever do that on is I think I'll make myself play every level 3 times if I ever get around to covering Hitman. Because the whole point is having different solutions for each level and the sheer like possibility space of each level. The alternative was to play every Hitman level twice, but with a co-host, and when we commit to always never killing the enemy the same way, and we take turns.
Just make different Let's Plays. Just Let's Play instead of, different Let's Plays, I suppose. I'd
want to do the same level multiple times in a row.
I see. Because it's easier as
in your
well.
head. Because like in the Thief case, it's like I'd explore it on normal and get the story and also know the layout of the world, at least the first version. And then I would play the hard objectives to get the full experience after I've like scouted it essentially. And in Hitman, it's like the best way to iterate on your previous run of the level is to have just played the level and not like play the whole campaign, then start over again and so on.
The Thief, I find it interesting that I saw your comment about it. I don't remember what video it was about Thief.
I think the MDK video.
Yeah. Oh, right, exactly. But it's easy. Just go for the hardest difficulty. It's not a very difficult game. You're gonna have a good time.
Yeah,
it's a really good game.
There's 3 different pieces of advice. A lot of people say to play normal your first time. Some people say the hardest difficulty. Other people say play the second hardest difficulty because it's too restrictive. Because on the second hardest difficulty you have most of the objectives, so you're kind of getting the full experience, but you don't have to deal with the fact that the hardest difficulty makes you play as a pacifist for the entire game, therefore making most of the tools pointless and useless.
Oh.
So there's so many schools of thought, and no matter what I pick, I'm wrong, and the pressure there makes me constantly not just. I'll be like next game in my mind. I'm like the next game is Thief, and I've done it like 3 times, and then I pick something else when it's time to play the next game.
That's true. I would never want to play Thief as not a pacifist. Of course, I'm going to give them the blackjack to the back of the head.
Yeah, but then the game at the same time, the game's full of so many different tools, and like just never using them feels like that is one thing.
No, yeah,
but having your options reduced can be a real bummer.
The thing is, it also depends. I think for me, since we're talking about Thief, the biggest question is how willing are you to be capable of reloading every once in a while because you screwed up. Because the game can get a little bit hard on if you get yourself into trouble.
I mean, I think the missions are probably like an hour or 2 long, and I'm not planning on like starting the whole mission over every time
but you can quick save. You can quick save.
That's what I mean. Like I've definitely would be quick saving. So I try not to save scum choices. I only save scum choices if I feel like the game straight up lied to me, not about the consequences of the choice, but what the choice even was.
Yeah.
I like the game. I like games surprising me with unforeseen consequences to my choices. But when a game just lies to me about what I'm doing, then I'm like, okay, come on, you literally wrote it wrong.
Exactly.
Fallout 4.
But the game isn't. Yeah, absolutely. But the game isn't very deep in that aspect. The story is mostly told in the middle of missions, in between missions, rather.
Yeah, no, I'm not concerned about that. For me, it would just be like it'd be the back and forth of like. There's a go loud or a chaos period when you get caught in a stealth game, and so I would be quick saving periodically, like I always do in those kinds of games, just to cut back on my having to go back if I fuck up sort of situation, kind of like in Half-Life Alyx. But whenever something goes wrong, I would still try to resolve it if I could without loading.
That's a good example.
Like I would try to like recover from the situation if possible. Because there's a story that comes from that. Like I got very frustrated in some past co-op playthroughs I've done with people, where the moment something went slightly wrong, they would just instantly load without asking the other players if they wanted to load. And it's like, no, like let's see how that scenario plays out. Like that's like
some games.
That's like the fun of D&D.
Are even better. Yeah, some games are even better for that sort of play where you see how it's going to turn out, because some games are designed with that in mind. Thief is not really. You do get a game over screen if you kill anybody on maximum difficulty.
Like when I'm trying to do my big fucking solo heist as my orc hunter that left the party behind, and I find this giant treasure hoard, but there's a giant scorpion on top of it, and I'm trying to stealth in and stealth out, and then right at the last second, on the last moment, I fail my final stealth check on my way out with the treasure, and it catches me in its claw. Like I don't fucking quick load. We play the scenario. What's going to happen here? Let's see what happens. Maybe I'll get slowly crushed to death down to the last particle of health, and the fucking scorpion will critically fail its grapple check and drop me. And because it's so big, it can't reach further into the room, and it can't actually pick me back up. So I'm just on the ground now, and I'm alive. Like it's like like the tool set of like a Dishonored or a Prey, and those are the games that are inspired by Thief. Like. Seeing how the systems in an immersive sim, seeing how those systems play out is worth seeing through whenever you fuck up. But also, quick save periodically so that once you do fuck up and fail, you at least don't have to replay the last hour.
Yeah, absolutely. The good thing about it is that there are some missions that if you look at the objectives, because basically the way the game works is when you start a mission, it has a list of objectives. And the objectives get added or extra difficult depending on the difficulty level that you choose. So if you look at the objectives and are like, I don't really care about collecting all the money. I'm just going to play on normal instead of hard or whatever. Because there's at least one mission where the only difference is the amount of money you collect. And if you don't care about that, if you don't want that as a... you just...
Although that itself is like encouraging you to fully explore the area and so on.
But you can still fully explore. It just doesn't hang over your head as a fail state.
Yeah. Shit's complicated.
That's the argument for normal, is that you can still do everything even on normal. It just doesn't require you to do it. But,
I increasingly find that running a Let's Play channel is like an endless series of like opportunity cost choices, essentially.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, like if I make this choice, then that means I don't do any of those other choices, and like that's just what this playthrough is. Like the choice to carry a Vincent throughout the whole of Half-Life Alyx. Like this is now a Vincent playthrough, so that you've lost the chance for this ever to be a non-Vincent playthrough, and there's different variations of that. And then people will be like, are you gonna replay this game or redo that game? Because they're like, you should replay KOTOR, but the other side of the story, or you should. Near Replicant HD, whatever is coming out. You played Near Gestalt before. It was like a tweet that came out today at me, and I'm like, no, I'm not gonna play the HD remake of the Japanese version of the game that I already played. Like, it's just not, the opportunity cost is not worth it. Like, if you have infinite time, I'm like, yeah, sure, that seems kind of fun, but like, I don't have infinite time. Every single playthrough I choose technically comes at the cost of all the other playthroughs I could have chosen. And so like there's such a specificity to like why like what deserves being replayed, and there has to be like a reason for replaying a game or doing like multiple styles of game and so on. And like it's like I can see a special case for Hitman, for example, or like a game like Dark Souls with all its different playthrough styles and how important it is to me and the channel and everything, and that's how specific and monumental that is. But then like something like Thief, it's like, yeah, I could play Thief twice, or I could play Thief 2. Do you want to play through Thief 2? You gotta think about that
Thief 2
real
is
hard,
so
guys.
Difficult. It's such a difficult game, though. But you should. It's fun sometimes.
I play every game all the time, constantly. I never stop playing video games.
I do that almost, in a way, I do that almost more than anyone. And yet, still unobtainable as a goal. I feel like I'm evidence
all over again.
I feel like I'm evidence towards the idea that if you try to fully embrace the idea of playing absolutely everything, it's like the more you play, the more you just get into the culture and understanding of how many games there even are, and the more you understand how impossible that idea is as a concept.
Yeah,
that's the limitless time problem. Is that there are always going to be more games, and there are time in the world to play them,
and
so
people
not even time to play them.
Given this infinite variety, they pick the most boring ones.
Yeah, like and then
they're like, Ghost of Tsushima's a fucking revelation. What an incredible video game! It's like
Neo 2, play it.
My sweet summer child. There's so much video game out there. Please.
Well, I mean, this goes back to the whole. Well, I guess not that exactly, but this goes back to like how journalism for games works and how there's not really good, not really like good incentive to talk badly about big games because
you
just get harassed for it.
Yeah, you get harassed for it by people.
You get doxxed and death threatened for criticizing a game mildly because of the sheer scale of its fandom. Even though it's not out yet, it has a fandom already, and it's like people are fucking exhausting.
Yeah, saying a game is like 5 out of 10. People are like, "How fucking dare you? You're you got an out for the game. You just don't like it because you're something." It's like, what? No, man, games can be boring as shit. Trust me, I play a lot of them all the time. There's plenty of boring games. Like
I was gonna, sorry.
No, go for it.
When you said how games journalism works, obviously there's still a lot of games journalism being done and good games journalism. But I was going to say, does it work? Because kind of YouTube and Twitch kind of broke a lot of what a lot of people had need for game journalism. It kind of broke that. It's the finding new games.
You can just go look at a thing, yeah.
I mean, that's what we talked about now with the idea of like fair use. Is like, well, at some point, like people. How else do people get an informed decision about a game that they're going to invest $60 fucking in, if not seeing someone else play it? And like,
but the thing is, the hate that you were talking about just now about the games journalists that say bad things about the games, it also applies to us when we play games and say, "Oh, this storyline is dumb," or the gameplay is not good.
We run into that constantly about people who get upset that we don't enjoy a game that they enjoy, or a game that we
the unironic fucking internet outrage when Donkey made a video about like Kingdom Hearts 3 or something, and like a few times now he doesn't love a JRPG, and like people are so mad about like a 5-minute comedy review of a game that they like that they just go on about it, not only for like just days on end on Twitter and so on, but then they keep bringing it up in other videos, constantly just raging at him. Like they just can't stop burning a torch to the point where they spend more time being mad at him than he spent making the review. And it's like, I don't know how people tick how they work. Their behaviors are so fucking confusing at this point.
It seems exhausting. I don't know. I'm constantly disappointed at all times by stuff.
I just ban them. Every time I see this pattern, I'm like, oh, goodbye.
I mean, I'm experiencing that a lot with like Honey Pop 2 currently, which is not been a fun experience.
Didn't expect that to be a fucking incendiary game, did you? Didn't think you'd be pissing off the Honey Pop fandom.
I didn't go into playing Honey Pop 2 with any... I went in with the utmost, like, all right, it's a dumb game. I'm going to have fun with a dumb game. You know, like, oh, I can expect, really bare bones writing, but a pretty acceptable match 3 game. And it's like, It's none of this. It's everything I didn't want in a video game turned into a video game. Awesome, thanks. I'm glad I'm here now. And people are just not happy that I don't. It's like, well, if you're not having fun, don't play it. It's like, I'm gonna fucking play the game that I bought, and I'm gonna beat the fucking game
I always hate
bought.
that comment
It's
because
like,
I'm like, fucking leave.
Yeah, like dude,
you have
like,
the like you're gonna begrudge this playthrough and make it so, and like if you get your way, it's like nobody gets this content because you don't like it. But like, there's this hypocrisy to the idea of like, if you're so mad about me consuming a thing I don't like, why are you still here? Like, you have the power to end this playthrough at any moment by simply not looking at it anymore, and they'll just keep making the same comment.
Let me just give a little bit of a counterpoint to that, because sometimes the comments are also good. And shout out to Supersonic Tumbleweed for saying the best comment that I've seen in a while. I posted it in chat in our Discord for you guys to see. I've been ragging on Deus Ex Human Revolution for the last little bit because the game is ramping up its storyline, and it's dumb a lot, and it's got interesting themes, but it does so many things wrong.
Oh yeah, that's always the counterpoint, is that there's always somebody who loves that, and you're making it for them. Being like, it's the other people's fault for sticking around and hating it.
Yeah, but there's definitely not an incentive from... That's the thing you always need to think about.
It's like our Sonic and Zero Escape playthroughs. Like, those have an audience. They are hungry for more.
They're not, it's not the fans. They're not making that for fans.
It's just all the dumb assholes that hate the videos but won't go away for some reason.
Yeah.
But there's no search engine optimization for let's play a game that I hate, basically.
Yeah,
because sorry.
No, go for it. Finish your thought.
Yeah, because I was just gonna say that it's at the end of the day, that's what some people might hang on to, is they might not like the game too much, but if your criticism is interesting, and if the points you raise are interesting, and if at the end of the day you're still having a good time, a good enough time anyway, then it's good YouTube, because that's you don't watch YouTube to play a game, you watch it to watch YouTube. So.
I think that's often kind of the role that we have when we make this kind of content, is that we're the counterpoint to that idea that I brought up earlier, that people just play games in zombie mode. And it's like not a thing I can just generalize about everybody, but there's a lot of people that just don't pay that much attention, and they're kind of multitasking, and they're kind of just burning through their afternoon after work or whatever, and they're not really engaging with the game that hard. Kind of like the way that like you can walk in on like your parents just the TV is just on, and they're like half paying attention to it, and like they barely know what they're watching. It's like a reality show something, and it just kind of goes, and then they'll leave the room and come back at any interval, and it doesn't really matter what they missed, and so on. Like that's often an approach to gaming. So when we make a playthrough of like Zero Escape, and we're actively engaging with the game the entire time, and we're obsessing over each element of the story and theorizing about what's going to happen next along the way throughout the entire experience, and actually breaking down each thing. And sure, we'll be wrong and we'll miss things and so on, because we're still people. It's not like a review where we researched the game and played it 5 times through and then carefully checked all of our work or anything. Like, it's us playing it on the fly, but like we're engaging with it very actively. And a lot of people aren't ready for that, because they're like, oh yeah, I like that game, but they didn't really like think about it very much along the way, and they didn't really like give it their full attention. And but because that's how they interact with a lot of games, they still came up with this idea that it was a good experience, even though they were half engaging with it. Hell, half of them, because there's so many people fucking admit they're watching our content while playing other games, and I'm like, no. Not unless it's like World of Warcraft or something. You should not be like multitasking while playing a video game. And it's like so they'll be blindsided by these things, and some people react to it in a hostile way, like how you just hate games and you're just coming to hate this and blah 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 blah. But then other people are like, oh my god, I didn't realize any of these things when I played through the game. And it's like you're opening their eyes to all these different observations and angles and what things mean, or catching on these details that they weren't catching, to the point where like oftentimes people like, you use this in a blind playthrough, you looked up what happened, or you knew what happened already because you keep predicting things. I'm predicting things because I'm fucking paying attention, and you weren't, because you were fucking eating Cheetos.
You were eating Cheetos,
and somebody was it's like you were talking on the phone with somebody and eating chips while also playing the game, and then there's a fucking music playing in the background that wasn't from the game, and then you're like, oh, I missed the part.
But there are games that are like they do it on purpose for you if you are if you're paying attention. Like I keep going back to stuff that I'm playing at the moment. Prey does that so often. Like you get introduced to a little idea or a little theory, something that doesn't add up. You think a little bit about it. You come to maybe it's this, and like 5 minutes later or 10 minutes later, it is or it isn't, whatever. But it's like it's the timing and the pace. That's why pacing is so important, because you can't be left with a presumption or with maybe it's going to be this for hours and hours and then just it was, pacing is very important in games, and you throw it completely out the window if you're not paying attention, because you're just not paying attention. There's no the setup and payback. Sorry, Andrew, you were going to say.
No, people, I think just like what Keith said, I think a lot of people don't like to be overly critical, or they like to give too many leniencies to games. Like I really hate the argument for games where it's like, oh, if you're struggling so much, why don't you just have a wiki open? It's like, no, I'm not gonna do that.
That's not,
if the game needs a wiki to be open to play it, the game sucks.
There's so many people that like extensively pre-research every game they play, so they never get a blind playthrough, because like they literally just like look up Hades builds and stuff like that.
I went into Hades completely blind. I had no idea. I was picking dumb shit for like the first half of the game. And the moment, and then I started figuring out how stuff works. And then you start like building a build. You're like, I know these are the good moves to have. And now I don't have issues unless I put myself into a situation.
The number of depressing threads you can find of people just spoiling themselves about Outer Worlds. When that is, Outer Wilds.
Outer Wilds.
When that's like the discovery process is all the game is. Like,
oh no.
Because you could just beat the entire game in 20 minutes from your first file if you know everything already. But
it's
like,
so good to discover.
You're literally not supposed to look up anything about it.
That's the one game where you can't even say what it is about without spoiling it.
You can't really explain any of the worlds in it, because all of them, how every world works is itself a discovery process, and that's the core progression of the game. You don't level up anything but your mind.
Outer
or even like the basic premise of the game. You can't even explain the point of the game.
Sure, you can. The point of the game is you are exploring space. Enjoy.
I went into Outer Wilds not even knowing about the core loop.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what you can't say if you know
which frustratingly, actually, that is spoiled on the store page.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I didn't even know that. Like, I just jumped in because it looked cool.
I didn't know that either. I was lucky.
And I was actually annoyed to find that you're supposed to know about that. Basically, it's like it's the bullet point thing that everyone introduces the game as being, and they explain it as that. And I'm like, no, don't say that.
I liked finding that by myself. I was very surprised when that happened. I was like, wait, what?
No, I mean,
is this?
That's the thing. Is like I hate that crap. I hate the feeling where I'm like, I don't really like this game, and people's counter arguments are like, yeah, but you're just approaching the game wrong. I'm like, am I actually approaching the game wrong, or do I have is my expectations too high for this game? Like, is it weird of me to expect that a game can use its own systems, its own UI, its own tutorial system to properly explain shit to me, or am I dumb for not going on Wikipedia and looking up how the fuck this goddamn game works? It's, I don't know, and that frustrates me.
And there are annoyingly some games designed for you to just look them up.
Yeah, and if that's the case, it's like
multiplayer, open world survival games are unplayable in a vacuum.
Yeah, and so
Don't Starve or Minecraft.
And so in those instances,
Minecraft.
My stance, and again, it doesn't have to be consensus, but my stance is that's a shitty game. I don't want to have a book open to play your fucking game. I'm not gonna do that. That's why I'm playing a game.
Especially a non-official book.
Yeah,
if it's an old school video game where you just kind of have to use the manual to fill in the gaps here and there, that's different than use the public wiki because we didn't make our game playable.
At least Minecraft is slightly better about it now. You can open up a crafting book and it will show you how to make the stuff. You want to make a desk? Here's the recipe to make a desk. You don't have to go on Wikipedia anymore. Well, you know what I mean. You make a table or whatever. If you want to make a roof or a brick slant, you can go into the crafting menu and you can scroll through the things you want to make or you can make. and then pick the thing, and it tells you what you need for that. That's nice. That should be in the game. That should always have been in the game. Like, why would I need to go somewhere else to find that? Now, I don't know what they do. That's frustrating, but that's also part of the exploration part. Whatever. I don't know what this fucking weird eye I have does. I guess I'll have to figure that out at some point. But then you look at the inverse, like Binding of Isaac, and you're like, all right, what the fuck is this item? It's like, oh, wouldn't you like to know? I'm like, yes, literally, I would like to know. What the fuck is this item? It's like, well, pick it up. Okay, I picked it up. What's the fucking item? Can you tell me what the item is? It's like, you got a boy. And I'm like, what does it fucking mean? Tell me what the fuck the item is in the game I already picked up. It's like, I can't make a decision to get rid of it now. Tell me what I just picked up. And it's like, you'll just figure it out.
It's fucking infuriating that Binding of Isaac just doesn't tell you what the mechanics are, even after you've picked something up. You're like, what is it doing, though?
Like, what does it fucking do?
I remember playing Don't Starve, and I picked the librarian, and I was constantly slowly going insane, and I had no idea how to fix that, and I was just like, just trying to mash all the systems. Like, how does sanity work? How do you improve it? How do I fix the fact that I'm going to be dead soon?
Yeah.
And it was just like an infinitely looping, like, fuck you. And it's like, you could try.
What was it? I don't remember what.
I don't know. I gave up because the game wasn't fun. I went to Invisible Ink, the game by the same company that knows how to communicate its mechanics at you.
Yeah,
Invisible Ink's incredible.
That's the thing
needs
that, like,
to have a book, I think.
That's the thing that baffled me about Hades. But like, you're playing Hades, you're like, oh my fucking god, you can do this? You're allowed to just have a clear and concise understanding of the mechanics before you pick things? Oh my god, you can look at what everybody gives you in like this thing called a UI? I've never even heard of that before. Does Binding of Isaac guys know that? There's a UI thing you can make? That's crazy. What the fuck? How did they come up with these genius ideas? It's so impressive. It's almost
That's
like
the redemption thing.
It's almost like
every time. Sorry.
Fucking it's like, sorry. It's infuriating to see like Supergiant just takes a genre and goes, oh, all of you have failed at this fundamentally. Let me fix that for you, and then just does it correctly, and you're like, guys, could you at least copy the fucking homework here? Because fuck, man, you guys are making garbage. Like,
the thing is, every time somebody tries to gaslight you, when you talk about a game and you criticize it, and people try to come up with all these excuses, whatever it is, I'm not talking about anyone in specific, but when you find something that works and a game that does it properly, like. I think that feeling of, oh, this is how it's done. It's so good when you find it, even whatever it is, because it doesn't necessarily have to be a perfect game like Hades. It could be just a partially perfect game, but you can pinpoint, even either it's the level design or it's the shooting mechanics or the writing or whatever.
I mean, that's the thing too. Is like there are some mechanics that work by exploration. There are some, like Binding of Isaac's a good example of this is the layout of the levels. The way that you figure out how to move around between worlds, and that you can't go like you can go back, but not after you've gone into the room the first time. That's a mechanic that's good to learn by experience. You go into a room, it locks you off. You go, oh fuck, I'm stuck here. And then and then once you finish the room, the doors open up, and you go back to the room you went before, and it's open. You don't get locked out again because you've cleared it. And you go, oh, you can keep going around the room. Gotcha. Like you don't need a tutorial for that. But when you pick up an item in a room and suddenly half your health is gone, you need to go like, sorry, what? What the fuck happened? What did that just do? Was that just a punishment? Did I get anything for that? Is there like, was this a bad choice? And the game's like, you'll figure it out when you die. And it's like, okay.
Was it a bad choice?
And then you die and you go, so what did it do? And it goes, you'll figure out next time you encounter it. I'm like, I'm gonna fucking kill. What does it do? Just tell me what it does. Like Hades, when you die, or when you succeed, it shows like when Hades, when you pick an item, when you pick a thing, it tells you exactly what it does, the numbers that it does, and all that stuff. While you're playing, at any point, you can stop the game and you can look at all the things you have and figure out all the stuff that it does. And when you win, you can go through and interrogate every single upgrade that you have and see exactly what it was doing and helping you. And it's like, these are important, valuable data sets that you can use to better your runs, which is the whole fucking premise for wanting to keep playing a roguelike. Like, the whole point is that you want to keep doing it so you get better and better. And so you need to figure out like what didn't work and why. Like if you get a stupid shitty fucking ability that does rupture, but it doesn't mean anything because there's no walls to push a boss into, then you look like a clown running into an enemy and hoping that they're going to bump into a wall, and they never do. And you're like, well, this fucking didn't work. And now you know next time, like, don't bother with that. Unless you're going to go, like, fill out the entire Seder room because there's fucking walls everywhere. And now you can just ping pong people to fucking death. Like, there's value, and you can say...
that's just knockback and wall slam damage, but Rupture actually applies to anything that would do knockback, even if it doesn't.
Oh, yeah, sorry. That's right. I meant the knockback.
That's the only reason it's viable.
I wasn't talking about Rupture. I was talking about the splash. I can't remember the name now. Like, when they hit the wall, and then it does a splash damage. That's the one I was talking about. We're like, that's a really fucking strong-ass power when you're in the Seder room, but it's worthless anywhere else where there's not like constantly walls you can bounce people into.
For me, the engagement. There's two things that engage me in a video game. So like one of them is specifically choices, like the number of choices you have, how interesting those choices are, and how how valid they are, what the trade-offs are, the risk reward, and so on. Like being a person who is actively making choices based on at least some kind of information is one of the best things you can have. So like that's why I loved playing the remake, the quote unquote HD remake of Resident Evil 1, which itself is 20 years old now. But it was remade again, but not that remade. It was just ported again. But that fucking original Resident Evil, where it's like, okay, here are the rooms where the safe rooms are. Here are enemies that are dangerous enough to be, and inconsistent a little bit enough that there's like a gamble here of how well engaging with them will do. Like how well will running past them work? How well will shooting them work? How much space do I need to shoot them before they catch up with me? Or how much space do I need to evade around them? How much ammo should I have? You're making all these choices specifically built around the fucking perfect mechanic, which is save rooms. I love the save rooms in Resident Evil games because that's where you make your choices. You have a little bit of quiet time where the song plays. You're like, okay, this is I've escaped momentarily from the horror game. I'm going to open this box up. Here's my items in the box. Here's the items on my character, and I need to choose. How much do I want to carry? How much space do I want to leave open for stuff I'll discover along the way? I'll open my map and figure out the route of like, where do I want to go next, either to explore or to go back and solve a puzzle or use a key that I've found. And what items do I think I'll need along the way? And there's so many choices being made there. And then once you're playing the game, you're making snap choices along the way that are either a mixture of like your plan and the improvisation you have to do along the way. And that's so fucking compelling. And then the other half of what makes games really interesting is usually discovery, just your natural curiosity being satisfied by you wanting to explore and find things and figure things out. But there's like right ways and wrong ways to do that. So like in the Dark Souls way and the Resident Evil way of exploring is just fucking great. But for me, at least for me, and I know there's other people that like it, like the Binding of Isaac version of exploring, where you just like, I don't know what it does, maybe you'll know someday, is like infuriating. It's like you're just the constant obfuscation of information to the point where, let's just fucking face it, everyone cheats. All the Binding of Isaac players just cheat and look this stuff up. They don't intuitively pick it up by just playing naturally for hundreds of hours. Like they just cheat and look it up. Like I don't know who this is for. What the fuck is this? There's entire wikis where the wiki has to be like a series of pictures, and you click on the picture because that's all you know that the ability is the icon that shows up when you get it, and you click on that to get told what the thing is, because you don't even have I think if I remember correctly, you don't even necessarily have like a name that you can easily type to like look up what it is half the time, and it's just the worst.
Yeah,
I think I know what Binding of Isaac is for. It's a joke on all the English speakers that didn't grow up playing English games without knowing what they meant.
I mean, it's
basically that.
I'd buy into that more if it wasn't made by Edward McMillan, where there's no personal experience to base that on.
I know. I'm just kidding. There's games that do it properly though.
Yeah, it's just a frustrating design choice, and like again, I get maybe that's something up somebody's alley. That's exactly what they want, but I don't think that that's fun. I don't think that that's good, and I'm going to say that. I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh wow, this is an innovative and an interesting experience. I'm gonna say, no, this sucks. I hate this. this is a shitty experience, because that's how I feel about a game. I'm not gonna like quietly sit there with my like mouth closed going like, you know, like that's what it feels like a lot of people want from you when you don't like a game. They're like, just shut up and enjoy the game, and you're like, or
there's like a dishonesty built into it, because
go watch someone the fuck else. Like, there's plenty of other people, and it's like, but they're not playing it like you do.
Let me
and it's
push
like,
back on you.
That's why. That's because they're not fucking critically thinking about the game. They're just playing the game. Like,
let me push back on you though. I think it's important to learn. Like, depends on how old you are and where you are in life. But I think it is important to learn how to deal with other people's differing opinions. If you're watching a Let's Play and the Let's Player doesn't agree with you on something, even if they think the complete opposite, don't let that get up to your head. Don't go watch somebody else. Continue watching Andrew complaining about Honey Pop 2 or whatever. and then, I mean, and then go on Rule 34 or whatever it is to get the thing that he blurs out.
Like, people like Overwatch. Like, they genuinely they enjoy the game. They have fun. They're wrong. They're just 100% wrong. That's not a humanly possible real thing unless you're lying to yourself. But
Andrew, you don't play Lucio.
I accept that people believe that, and I just go, all right, that's fine. If you truly
Lucio.
believe that, I'll let you believe that.
Lucio.
I'm not
That's
gonna like force you to understand the reality, but like, I don't have to live in that weird, fake, idealistic world that you live in. I don't have to be sitting there with my eyes held open by like fucking metal wires going like, oh, I see why it's so fun. Yeah, you could just, all the colors. Oh,
you need to
and
play
just ignore
Lucio.
all of the frustration on like this building up behind me. Like, I don't know. That's the thing that happened with Honey Pop, where I'm like, everything just keeps fundamentally failing me. Like, all of it just keeps being such an abject failure, and people are just like, it's fine, just get over it, chill. And it's like, how do you chill when things just keep falling down in front of you? It's like, what?
There also are two other flavors of viewer, because there's one type of viewer that, like, I had this experience with the game and I just want you to recreate that experience for me. It's like, they're like, wow, what an experience to see a game through fresh eyes. But like, while some part of the people are like, wow, I can't wait to see how this turns out in your unique way. Other people are just like, by fresh eyes, I mean like, be me as a child, so I can see it again as a child. Like, make my experience happen again the same way is what they want from you. And then there's other people that frankly should just be buying video games, but instead of buying video games, they're watching you, and you exist only as a conduit to be the game for them, and they're mad every time you get in the way. And those people could just immediately fuck up. Like, if anyone ever like, you talk too much, I'm like, banned. I'm just immediately like, I'm done. Literally immediately, I'm like, this is the premise of this. Like, if they complain about me being on my own show, then they're gone. Like, and I don't mean like they have criticism. I mean like they're literally like, they're complaining about me being in the way of their absolutely. Like. I'm not just a fucking like casket that serves them the game for them that they refuse to buy. I'm like, I'm not. No, fuck you. This is my channel. It's me. I live here every day.
Be honest. They don't say you talk too much. They say he talks too much.
Yeah, they always talk about me as if I'm not the number one person that sees their comment.
The only person, in fact, because nobody goes back and watches the.
And they're usually way meaner than that. Which just earns the ban more, because like people that like are mad the Let's Player is Let's Playing is like, all right, I'm sorry you don't. It's like watching someone not know how to use a screwdriver or not know what it's for, but they're here anyway, like holding a screwdriver, and they're just like banging it against the wall, like, why not work right? This is a bad walkthrough. I'm like, okay. I get complaints every day about how my videos are bad walkthroughs, and I'm like, okay.
That's not what they are.
Yeah, like, oh, they didn't answer your question about the thing. It says Let's Play in the title. What do you think this was?
I give concessions at times where I understand that, like, you know, okay, sometimes it isn't fun to listen to me just keep complaining about the same thing as it continually kicks me in the shins every time I encounter it.
Yeah, but sometimes like, you're stuck in the middle of it, and that's just all the game's giving you. It's just that's all it has for you.
Yeah, that's all it has. And so, like, my solution to Honey Pop is like, I just don't play it sober. I just haven't played Honey Pop sober the entire, like, for like 7 episodes now.
You do sound a little bit affected. That's true.
it's infuriating. I hate it. I like the moment I stop recording, I'm like, God, what a fucking bad experience. Like, it's just such an unfun.
You're literally just
time.
drinking to get through it because, like, the YouTube algorithm demands you play more Honey Pop because it's doing so
really
well
popular,
on your channel.
But like, it's so bad. It's just such a bad game, and there's like no. I can't be sober through it because, like, Jesus Christ, the characters alone are just like, could you please fucking go somewhere else? Just go to a different fucking game, please. I'm just trying to have fun here. And then,
and here's the thing: at the end of the day, the people, the irritating people that are mad at you, they don't matter. They just don't matter. Like, I look at your videos, and your
I'm
videos
not having fun. Making the content, and that's the problem. Is like, I need to have fun to keep making this video, and I can't. I literally noticed
myself. It helps
myself,
I have fun playing bad games and complaining about them, Gene. But I just mean like the fact that your videos, all of your videos have thousands of views in a way that's like astronomically high for anything on your channel. But also, despite the fact that the overriding feeling about them is that people just keep complaining about your videos and stuff, all of those videos have hundreds of likes and like 0 to 10 dislikes.
I don't know who they are, but thank you.
It's like
but
the
why?
whiny people are non-representative, and they never are. They're just an irritating handful of people. And no matter what content you make, no matter what form it takes, no matter how hard you try to like appease everyone, there's always somebody complaining. And they'll, in many cases, on a daily basis, you hear a new complaint you've never heard before, and it's like a brand new thing. It's like the time I made the fucking Wasteland 2 playthrough, and the guy was like complaining how it's so fucking condescending that you would read this game to me, and I'm like, what? Like, he was offended. I was reading the dialogue that was it's not voice acted.
Ever YouTube
Wasteland 2 is no, it's not voice acted. I'm just reading the dialogue, and he was offended, not just annoyed that it wasn't a silent playthrough, because there are like silent playthroughs of text heavy games where they just click every few seconds, but like, he was offended I was reading to him, and you just eventually you just get so fucking you get so fucking disillusioned by the sheer number of stupid comments you get. You just realize it's just not. You just ignore it. None of these people matter.
Imagine like
they're never representative. It's always someone's unique, stupid fucking complaint.
Did you say that in school when the teacher's like reading a book and he's like, "Are you fucking condescending to me?" Like,
just go up to you go to high school, like, don't you lecture me.
Exactly, that's sort of more or less what had happened. You go to watch a YouTube Let's Play. I mean, I suppose the thing is, like, it doesn't make sense on any level, but like, if
I used to see Andrew playthroughs of Japanese games where he would just like go to the dialogue, and like every time dialogue came up, he'd be like, click.
Oh, right,
click. Chotamate. Yeah. Click. Like, he wasn't reading any of it. He was just looking at it, reading it in his head, and pressing A. And I was like, "What are you doing?"
That's why, like, I don't play any visual novels that aren't voiced, because it's a lot of effort to like voice all of them.
Yeah, like that guy would have been so happy with you. That one, you have one customer.
Wow.
For that content style.
And now I have the problem with Honey Pop where I have to struggle to not skip the dialogue because I don't want it to happen. And it's like, and I have to sit there like, don't press, Andrew, you could press the button and stop it, but don't do it. Don't press the button, Andrew. And like every episode, there's one time where I do it on accident because I cannot stop myself. Someone's saying something. It's like, I can't believe, click. Oh, fuck, I'm supposed to wait for the fucking God. Oh, sorry. All right. Like, because they're so aggravating. They're so unlikable. They're so unfucking great to be around that it's like I will do anything to get away from it. And like I've gotten to the point now where I don't listen to them, because if you give them anything like gifts or food or whatever, they say like a little quip. I don't do that anymore. I just speed rush it all. Or I just give them everything. They're like, here, and they just like, the dialogue stacks on itself really quick. It's like,
that's all, folks.
Yeah, and I'm just like, all right, we're done. We don't need to hear we don't need to hear what they have to say, because I assume they're appreciative of everything I've given them. Done. Let's move on now. And then like, it's so frustrating. when that's the game that takes off. Like, couldn't it be Spyro? I like Spyro. I'm having a great time with Spyro. Just like that
You're
one should take
cursed
off.
where your most popular games
Yeah.
will always be furry
always-
and dating visual novels.
So I was like, I don't. And it's fine. I like some visual novels. I just also, the ones that get popular are the ones I don't like. Those aren't the ones I like. Like, stop liking this trash. Like, why? What about, like, when I played
It's
Honey
always
Pop
the trick.
1,
It's like the popular comment from the audience is, just play what you like, but also you won't watch it.
yeah, like, that's the thing. It's like, all the comments in Honey Pop are like, it's fine, you have enough charisma to carry the channel on your own, just play games you
Yeah.
like. No, I don't, because I've been doing that, and people don't watch them, sir.
It's so
because
common
not
that my favorite
interesting.
playthrough on the channel at a given time is the least watched on the entire
Yes.
thing.
Yes. Like, my favorite playthrough on the channel is Banjo-Kazooie, because I had the most fucking fun ever playing that game. And guess what? It's not nearly, even remotely close to as popular as one episode of Honey Pop is. And it's
One
like,
episode, my god.
fuck me then. Like, the whole series entirely is not even close to being as popular as one episode of Honey Pop. It's like, maybe, just maybe,
stack 'em
guys,
up.
maybe the problem is the bad games. Like, it's not me. It's the fact that the bad games are the ones that keep making it being the successful things on my channel. And it's not like, I'm not some kind of savant here. I'm not playing Honey Pop like some fucking 4D 200% IQ chess master. I'm not like every match is a fucking intense, stressful game. It's like, oh, 4, 3, 3, 4. If only they didn't fuck this part up. 4, 3, 3. Oh shit, I might not make it. 4. Oh wait, I'll make it. 3. It's a match 3 game. It's so fucking bare bones. And
Right,
they try
because
to
you're
like
basically just playing Puzzle Quest.
yes, and they try to spice it up. They throw a little fucking salt guy spice on it, where it's like they got baggage, and it makes it a little bit harder. And I go,
It's Bejeweled
All
but with
right.
anime. Oh my god, wait, what? Sorry, I'm watching your
Yeah.
gameplay and it's not even good Bejeweled.
no,
You straight up
Like,
can cheat. You can move the tiles so far. It's not just you don't just switch neighbors with each other. What the fuck?
No, you can move it all the way left and all the way up and down. Or
Oh
you can
my
move it left and
God.
right as much and up and down as much for every tile.
So it's a game that was already casual, but now it's for
Yes.
babies.
More casual.
Like they somehow ultra casualized a game that was already casual.
Well, now Honey Pop 2 added some hard modes to it, where they give you stupid stipulations. So Honey Pop isn't that bare
SS,
bones.
what is that?
There is a lot of stuff going on there. So the point is, it's not just match 3. Each match 3 you make gives you points, and those points need to fill up a
Plus
meter at the bottom.
sexuality seed.
Sexuality.
These terms.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, what do sexuality seeds? Fucking, the game doesn't explain them to you. You have to figure that out on your own.
Well, unfortunately, we desperately need to stop
Yeah,
because
but
I have
yes, we
I
do.
have only a half an hour to cook and eat dinner before the stream, so we're gonna close things off here. If you want to ask us questions, send them to dialogchoicespodcast@gmail.com. No one does.
And go watch Honey Pop
and
2 on
instead,
Andrew's
we'll
channel.
talk to you about geography.
Go watch Andrew's Spyro playthrough and comment, subscribe on it, do all the interactions on it to boost us on the algorithm. While
I'm having fun with it. It's me.
while neglecting to interact with this Honey Pop playthrough
It's me
so that
being
it fails.
I
positive.
can vouch.
It's
I can vouch for the Spyro playthrough being better than the Honey Pop one because I watched a little bit of each.
Andrew
and,
does like
Positive.
games sometimes. It's just that whenever he
Yeah.
does enjoy a game, nobody watches that playthrough. And that stands
It
for
is-
both his solo stuff and our co-op stuff. It's always
It
the
is
least
important.
popular. The least popular Andrew content is the stuff that he liked.
It is important to point out that even though Andrew likes Spyro, he did spend the first 2 episodes complaining about the game.
I did, but not in a
But it's fun, it's good.
but not in an overly negative way. It was just like
Exactly,
these
it
are things
was-
that are not good about this game, but
it
that's
was fun.
okay. Like
It was fun.
You learn mistakes. Like it was the first time they made a game in a 3D platformer, and they figured it out. Like
Yeah.
it's all
All
right.
right, good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.